Chapter 5:19. Looking at the battle between the liches and demons, it was really magnificent. Mount Buzhou collapsed, the heavenly realm was shattered, and the chaos demon god broke out of the seal, and the barrier between heaven and earth was almost destroyed. After that, the liches and demons used the power of their clans to transform into the gate of liches and demons to protect the primordial world. The Grand Pure One supported the heavens. The Ziwei Star Master appeared out of nowhere and repaired the boundless starry sky with one hand. The World Tree appeared to support the heavens and earth. The Black Turtle sacrificed itself and transformed into the 4 pillars that supported the heavens. The Nuwa sacrificed herself and used her body to mend the heavens. Those things were all myths of myths, enough to be passed down through the ages and praised by future generations. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The disaster subsided, and the heavenly path appeared. It was time to reward them based on their contributions. Who should take the lead in saving the world this time? It had to be Feng Zichen. Therefore, the first person to be rewarded by the heavenly path was Feng Zichen. Boundless merit gathered. It was more than half of the earth transformation cycle. However, Feng Zichen did not absorb the merit. Instead, he waved his hand and sent it into Zhouxing to repair the stars. At this moment, he had just broken through and would not be able to advance any further in a short period of time. Therefore, it was useless to keep the merit. It was better to use it to repair the stars and increase the strength of Pangu. Next, there was probably going to be a tough battle. The saints would never sit back and watch him master Zhouxing and become the lord of the boundless starry sky. It was not easy to kill Di Jun. How could the saints allow an existence to replace Di Jun to appear? Then what was the point of them trying their best to kill Di Jun? Besides, if Feng Zichen really became the lord of the boundless starry sky, then wouldn't all their previous efforts be for Feng Zichen? It wasn't easy to get rid of Di Jun, but not only did he fail to reap any benefits, he even got himself into trouble. There was even a possibility that he might encounter an opponent even stronger than Di Jun. How could the sages allow such a thing to happen to themselves? If that was the case, would he still want his face? Therefore, after the Heavenly Tao Awards, those saints would definitely attack Feng Zichen at the first possible moment. Not to mention suppressing it, at the very least, they had to trap it in the boundless starry sky. With such a difficult future ahead, how could Feng Zichen not think of ways to improve his strength? Speaking of which, it was rather laughable. Feng Zichen hated external forces the most. However, up until now, he had mostly relied on external forces. The number of times he had relied on his own strength to act could be counted on one's fingers. Oh man, in the end, he would become the person he hated. He didn't know if he was lucky or unlucky. The Qi of Merit was indeed worthy of the name of the primordial world all-purpose oil. After absorbing the Qi of Merit, Zhouxing's origin recovered a lot and became brighter. More star power was emitted from their bodies and floated to the primordial world, bringing boundless vitality to everyone. Under this influence, the power of the galaxy cosmic light array increased by another level. God Pangu could already unleash the power of the 10th heaven of primordial chaos. Today, Feng Zichen was no longer the cultivation novice of the past. He had more or less understood the primordial chaos realm. The primordial chaos Daluo Jinxian was divided into 12 levels. It was said that one step was equivalent to ascending to heaven, so it was also known as the 12 levels of primordial chaos. Dao Ancestor Hongjun was too unfathomable. Everyone could only guess that he had at least the 10th heaven of primordial chaos. As for the specific level, no one knew. Anyway, he had not transcended the primordial chaos realm. Under Dao Ancestor Hongjun was the first disciple of the celestial sect, Saint Tai Ching. Over the years, he had worked hard to cultivate and had already reached the 6th heaven of primordial chaos realm. After him was Goddess Nuwa. Mending the Tao and becoming a saint was the Lord of creation, the mother of all things. Goddess Nuwa's strength was far from what it looked like on the surface. She was at the 5th heaven of primordial chaos realm. However, in order to mend the heavens, she had dismembered her saint body, causing her strength to be greatly reduced. It was estimated that she would become the weakest existence among the saints for a long time in the future. After Nuwa, it was Heavenly Lord Yuanshi and Sect Master Tongtian. They were also at the fifth heaven of primordial chaos realm. After them were Hutu, Taoist Jiayin, and Taoist Juanti. They were at the fourth heaven of primordial chaos realm. Hutu reached the Tao later, so she could not catch up with the three pure ones in a short time. As for Saint Juanti and Saint Juanti, it was purely because of a lack of resources. In terms of innate conditions, they could not even compare to Zenyuanzi, let alone the three pure ones. As for the cultivation after the saint realm, the three pure ones had Pangu's mark. Nuwa could go to the Purple Cloud Palace to ask for guidance at any time. Hutu could comprehend the samsara disk of chaos. As for Juanti, he could only cross the river and figure it out by himself. Therefore, how could they catch up with other saints in terms of cultivation? After rewarding Feng Zichen, the next target of the heavenly axiom was the Tree of World. In the sky, golden light shone. More than 70% of Feng Zichen's black-yellow merit fell into the body of the Tree of World. The Tree of World absorbed a small part of the merit as nutrients for growth. The rest of the merit formed three fruits. The black-yellow merit fruit. Every single one of them contained supreme fortune, enough to allow one to become a golden immortal immediately. The next one was Nuwa. It was equivalent to 50% of Feng Zichen's black-yellow merit. It was bestowed by the heavenly axiom as a reward to Nuwa. Nuwa did not absorb the merit. Instead, she combined it with the power of creation and refined it into an innate God-fiend body. However, it was a pity that Nuwa's holy body had been nourished by the path of creation for countless years. It had long been refined to an extraordinary state. It was far from being comparable to this black-yellow body. After that, it was the black tortoise's turn. No matter what, it had a share of the heavenly axiom, so it had a lot of merit. A portion of merit equivalent to half of what the Tree of World had obtained flew to the black tortoise's indestructible true spirit. Then it took the merit and reincarnated. Now, this is interesting. At this moment, Feng Zichen suddenly looked at the heavenly axiom with a gloating look. He had silently calculated just now. In such a short time, the black-yellow merit bestowed by the heavenly axiom had already added up to 5 times of the reincarnation merit. TSK, TSK, TSK. That was not a small matter. The black-yellow merit did not appear out of thin air. It was condensed from the origin of heaven and earth. Every time it was bestowed, a portion of the origin of heaven and earth would be missing. This was a weakening of heaven and earth, and it was also a burden. Of course, occasionally bestowing some to the heavens and earth was not a big deal. But like today, bestowing a large amount of black-yellow merit at once was equivalent to drawing the blood of heaven and earth. No matter how rich the origin of heaven and earth in the primordial world was, it could not withstand such a creation. He was afraid that after this wave, the power of the heavenly axiom would also fall to the bottom. This was not a good thing for the heavenly axiom. However, it was not the heavenly axiom's doing not to reward someone with merit. It was against the fairness of the heavenly axiom. Feng Zichen was now waiting for the heavenly axiom to make a choice. Would it reward or not? After bestowing the merit to the black tortoise, the heavenly axiom hovered in the void for a long time before it symbolically gave some merit to everyone. At the same time, an extremely mysterious message appeared in everyone's hearts. Ha ha! Merits offset demerits. I'm dying of laughter. The heavenly axiom really knows how to play. After understanding this information, Feng Zichen laughed so hard that he almost cried. Previously, in order to stop the liches from continuing to fight, they exchanged a blow with the liches and demons. It was also this blow that caused the collapse of Mount Buzhou, and the apocalyptic calamity began from here. It could be said that everyone had to bear a part of the responsibility for the apocalyptic calamity of the primordial world. The heavenly axiom seized this reason and blamed the destruction of the world on everyone, causing their previous efforts to save the world to become atonement. That was to atone for their sins. Then naturally, there was no need to give merit anymore. However, in the end, the heavenly axiom was the most benevolent. The heavenly axiom could not bear for everyone to work for nothing, so it symbolically gave them some merit as an incentive. If it were not for Nuwa sacrificing herself, he probably would not have been able to obtain merit. This, for a moment, everyone's expressions became extremely ugly. After working so hard for half a day, not only did they not obtain any benefits, they almost bore the title of a sinner who destroyed the world. What else? Was there anything more **ket up than this? On the other hand, the liches and demons had saved the world because they had everyone to share the blame. In addition, their performance in this great calamity was extremely outstanding. Although they did not obtain any benefits, it could be considered as offsetting their previous sins and being able to survive. Seeing everyone's ugly expressions, the liches and demons, who were afraid that they would be implicated, hurriedly left this place. Xian Ming brought the remaining liches and went to the netherworld to seek refuge with the Hutu. The 10 great demon gods brought the remaining demons to the 100,000 mountains to live in seclusion, waiting for the return of the demon emperor. As for the heaven realm, the 10 great demon gods were not fools. Of course, they would not continue to occupy this place foolishly. Without enough strength, they still dared to covet the heaven realm, the center of power in the primordial world. Wasn't that courting death? Suddenly, Feng Zichen looked in the direction of the saint and let out a bewildered voice. In his eyes, in the void that no one could see, there was an endless amount of sin gathering on the saint's body. What's going on? Feng Zichen was really shocked. In this great calamity, the saint's performance could be said to be impeccable. He had even made great contributions to the primordial world. It was already too much for the heavenly Tao not to reward them. Now he had even given them boundless sins. This was really... Seeing this scene, even Feng Zichen, who had regarded the saint as an imaginary enemy, could not help but feel a little wronged for the saint. From this it could be seen. What the heavenly Tao did this time was really too much. As for whether Feng Zichen had seen wrongly or not, that was impossible. His eyes were called the heavenly Tao's purple eyes. They came from the same source as the heavenly Tao and had the power of the sun and the moon. They could be said to be the second strongest eyes in the primordial world. They were second only to the heavenly Tao's eyes. The eye of heavenly punishment. It was precisely because Feng Zichen's eyes were so powerful that he could see things that others could not, just like the endless sins that were gathering on the saint's body. Just as Feng Zichen was thinking, the endless sins had already gathered and rushed towards the 6 saints. The expressions of the 6 saints became extremely ugly at this moment. As the parties involved, they naturally knew more than Feng Zichen. After thinking for a while, they understood where the sins came from. Dereliction of duty. No, dereliction of duty. Serious dereliction of duty. Why did the saint exist? It was to assist the heavenly Tao in managing the primordial world. However, under their management, such a big thing had happened in the primordial world. If this was not dereliction of duty, what was? No matter how outstanding their performance in the tribulation was, it could not change the fact that they had dereliction of duty. In the eyes of the heavenly Tao, what they thought was saving the world was just a remedy after the incident. It was what they should do. It was their duty. Dereliction of duty caused the primordial world to almost be destroyed. This great crime of destroying the world was to be blamed on the saint. After all, the primordial world was born under their management. Of course, the heavenly Tao had to settle the score with them. Therefore, the current situation was created. This endless sin was the punishment given to the saint by the heavenly Tao. Of course, these sins seemed serious. But in fact, it could only be considered a small punishment, because the saint was not tainted by karma. Even if these sins were 10 times more, they would not be able to hurt them. Of course, karma could not hurt the saint, but those who were closely related to the saint would be unlucky. For example, their disciples. The pitch-black karma pounced fiercely at the saint. However, the saint was protected by the heavenly Tao. An invisible barrier appeared beside the saint. No matter how the karma acted, it could not even touch the corner of the saint's clothes. Every time the karma rushed to the saint's side, it would be fiercely shaken away. After working hard for a period of time, the karma saw that it could not do anything to the saint, so it followed the connection and pounced on their disciples. This was a transfer. The saint was not tainted by karma, but their disciples did not have this ability. The karma followed the karma between the master and disciple and transferred to the disciple. This was called the disciple serving the master when he had something to do. Did they really think that they could sit back and relax after acknowledging the saint as their master? As the saying goes, the more you get, the more you lose. Acknowledging the saint as their master would certainly give them his protection, but they would also have to be responsible for the saint's mistakes. The saint could not be wrong. Then the one who was wrong would be the saint's disciple. At this time, the benefits of having merit were reflected. Among the 6 saints, Nuwa's merit was the strongest and richest. Moreover, she had directly abandoned her sacred body in this great calamity, which could be considered a huge price. The heavenly Tao was fair. Therefore, it did not make things too difficult for Nuwa. It was just a symbolic punishment for him. The karma that surged towards her was directly purified by the merit. As for the other saints, they did not have so much merit. They could only watch helplessly as the boundless karma surged towards their disciples. As the most powerful existence among the disciples of the saints, Xianqing naturally had the most karma that surged towards him. But he did not care, because Xianqing had too much merit on him. Whether it was the merit of setting up the currency, the merit of the path of Chi-Core, the merit of the teleportation array, the merit of the array disk, the merit of establishing the path of talismans, the merit of opening up the Pure Land. It was enough for him to be fearless of karma. Moreover, Xianqing still had the 12th grade White Lotus of Purification in his hands. Chapter 520. As the name implied, the 12th grade White Lotus of Purification was a top-grade innate spirit treasure of the path of purification. It had the ability to purify all the filth in the world. That was the nemesis of karma. Karma was also a kind of filth. Therefore, it was just karma. What did Xianqing have to fear? Before the monstrous karma approached Xianqing, the golden light of merit that enveloped his body naturally sensed it. Dazzling golden light blossomed. It was warm but not scorching, peaceful but not violent. Wherever it passed, all the darkness and filth would quickly recede like snow exposed to the sun. In the blink of an eye, the monstrous karma that surged over dissipated under the counterattack of the golden light of merit. During this period, Xianqing did not even do anything at all. He only relied on the automatic counterattack of the golden light of merit to resolve the karma that made the saint frown. Sometimes, merit was just so useful. Xianqing had a lot of merit on him and was not afraid of karma. However, the disciples of the other 4 sects were not so lucky. Boundless karma came from the void and spread to the bodies of all the disciples of the 4 sections. Not all of the disciples were tainted with karma. For example, Duobao had the merit of creating the array disk, the Yang clan had the merit of protecting the clan, they had merit to protect them, so they were able to survive this disaster that involved the fish in the moat. Sigh. They were really pitiful, these disciples. They had not made any mistakes. But they were inexplicably implicated by their teachers, causing them to be tainted with karma at such a young age. Don't underestimate the role of karma. Among the many disciples of the 4 sects, other than Xianqing and the Yang clan, the rest had not attained the Daluo Dao fruit and cultivated the Daluo Jingxian. They were all in the Golden Immortal realm or the Tai Jingxian realm. Originally, they all had a bright future. Under the protection of the saint, they had a high chance of cultivating the Daluo Jingxian. But now, an accident had caused them to be entangled with karma. If they could not eliminate these karma, they would not have any hope of becoming the Daluo Jingxian in the future. This can't even be called bad luck. Then what would be considered bad luck? How miserable. The disciples of the saints were really pitiful. TSK. TSK. Tisk. No wonder, no wonder. I was wondering why there wasn't a single disciple of the sages who could fight in the future. So this was the reason. At this moment, Feng Zichen had a look of realization. In the future, the strength of a sage was truly terrifying. However, the performance of their disciples was somewhat unsatisfactory. Could even be said that it was very bad. Other than Duobao, there was no one else who could fight. So this was the root of it. With so much karma entangling them, they would have a hard time in the future. Not to mention improving his strength, just being able to maintain his current strength was already very difficult. It was no wonder that after the disciples of Chan School joined the Western sect in the future, their strength began to improve by leaps and bounds. It was all because the Western sect lacked resources. Therefore, they took a different path on the path of cultivation, focusing on accumulating merit and refining qi as a supplement. With more merit, the negative karma would naturally dissipate. The disciples of Chan School, who had extraordinary aptitude, had been suppressed for so many years. How could their cultivation not improve by leaps and bounds? By the way, Feng Zichen also discovered something interesting. That was, the heavenly Tao's punishment of the saints was equal. That was to say, the negative karma that the 6 saints bore was the same. However, the number of disciples was different. At this time, whoever had more disciples would be the one to take advantage of the situation. The Grandmaster of Heaven had tens of thousands of disciples. The monstrous negative karma surged over. In fact, there was not much that landed on everyone's heads. The Grand Pure One only had 1 disciple, and he had a lot of merit. It was easier to protect him. However, for the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning and Juan-Ti, it was a little troublesome. During the God-conferment tribulation, the disciples of Chan School were not as good as the disciples of Jie School. After the world returned to normal, the myriad Tao returned to its original position. The baptism of heaven and earth that should have been given to Feng Zichen finally appeared. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The world rumbled as the myriad Tao appeared. Zhouxing was also filled with endless joy. Even the heavenly Tao lowered its gaze. Whoosh! In the void, 10,000 rays of light appeared out of thin air. It was extremely dazzling and released a mysterious and unfathomable power. That was the essence of the great Tao. It was the essence of the myriad Tao of heaven and earth. It had unimaginable power. Boom! As the essence of the myriad Tao appeared, a phenomenon appeared in the void. It was extremely mysterious. The great Tao resonated together. Flowers fell and golden lotuses bloomed. They surged towards Feng Zichen. That was the blessing of the myriad Tao. Boom! Boom! Zhouxing was also trembling. Wisps of origin flew out and surged towards Feng Zichen. This was the blessing of the stars. Even the high and mighty heavenly Tao represented the world and bestowed a heavenly Tao origin. The blessing of heaven and earth. The entire primordial world was celebrating the birth of the great Ziwei Star Lord. The myriad Tao resonated. At that moment, Feng Zichen felt that he was extremely powerful, as if he had endless power. Even a saint would not be able to withstand a single blow from him. That was not an illusion. That was the truth. The current Feng Zichen was blessed by the myriad Tao and the heaven and earth. Making an enemy of him was making an enemy of the entire heaven and earth. Just think about it. How mighty was the power of the primordial world. Even if the Chaos Fiend God came personally, he would not be able to escape the fate of being suppressed. Not to mention a saint. It could be said that at this moment, Feng Zichen was an invincible existence in the primordial world. However, it was a pity that this power was only temporary. When the power of heaven and earth faded away, Feng Zichen would be beaten back to his original state. But that was enough. Such a powerful power, even if it was only temporary, was enough for Feng Zichen to complete something that should have been done long ago. That was to take away the authority of the sun star. The next moment, Feng Zichen's spiritual will, wrapped in the majestic power of heaven and earth, rushed out and surged towards the sun star. The sun star, one of the 3 supreme stars of the primordial world. If he wanted to truly control the boundless starry sky, the first thing he had to do was to control the 3 supreme stars in his own hands. Only in this way could he be considered to have the boundless starry sky in his pocket. As for the other stars, compared to the 3 supreme stars, they were not so important. The Emperor Star was Feng Zichen's natal star. The Moon Star, in a sense, was also under Feng Zichen's control. Only the Sun Star had nothing to do with Feng Zichen. Therefore, when he was strong enough, he naturally had to make a move on the Sun Star at the first possible moment and control it in his hands to prevent others from getting ahead of him. Swish! The distance of billions of miles did not seem to exist under Feng Zichen's spiritual will. In the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of the sun star. Then, he ignored the blazing true fire of the sun and directly rushed towards the core of the sun star. Huff, huff, the closer he got to the depths of the sun, the hotter the true fire of the sun around him became. In the end, the true fire of the sun had already taken on a form. It was either the form of a fire crow, the form of a heavenly dragon, or the shadow of a fire tree. There were all kinds of them. However, they had one thing in common. After seeing Feng Zichen, they all crazily spewed out the true fire of the sun and pounced on him as if they were going to kill the intruder. Humph! Seeing this scene, Feng Zichen's face turned cold. He snorted slightly, and a terrifying pressure spread out. In an instant, these fire spirits were turned into ashes. These creatures were all spirits born from the true fire of the sun. They could be said to be fire spirits. They were all good at playing with fire. However, under the suppression of Tai and Dijun, these fire spirits could not even give birth to intelligence, let alone transform. It was precisely because of this that the true fire of the sun had burned for countless years, but not a single creature was born. Even so, Tai and Dijun did not let them go. The two brothers used their great magic to imprison these fire spirits in the sun star and turn them into guards to protect the safety of the sun star. Even now, Dijun and Tai had fallen. The forbidden spell that they cast on the fire elves did not weaken at all. It was still working, making the fire elves firmly abide by their duties. Thinking about it, the sun star was the foundation of Tai and Dijun. How could it be so easy to break into? There must be many tricks set up by Tai and Dijun inside. Roar! 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 In the depths of the sun star, the strength of the fire spirits was even stronger. There were even fire spirits whose strength was not inferior to Dalio Jinxian's. However, at this time, Feng Zichen was invincible in the primordial world. Not to mention Dalio Jinxian, even a quasi-saint was far from being his match. Therefore, Feng Zichen relied on his powerful strength and rampaged all the way to the core of the sun star. During this period, anyone who dared to block the way was killed by Feng Zichen with a single blow. Fusang Tree? Looking at the golden tree in front of him, Feng Zichen frowned. The core of the sun star was behind this tree. In other words, this tree was the last test for Feng Zichen to go to the core of the sun star. This old tree was not easy to deal with. Fusang Tree, one of the 10 great primordial spiritual roots of the primordial world. It grew on the sun star to suppress the restless true fire of the sun. Its cultivation was at least at the peak of the quasi-saint realm. There were rumors in the future that the Fusang Tree had long been possessed by Dijun and became his clone. After his death, he walked in the primordial world with the name of the Nine Suns Emperor. If it had been when he had just transmigrated, Feng Zichen might have believed it without a doubt. But from the looks of it now, these words were simply nonsense. Not to mention that the Fusang Tree had suppressed the sun star for many years and had extremely deep merit. How foolish would it be to possess him? Wasn't it afraid of provoking the heavenly punishment? At that time, he wouldn't even know how he died. Besides, as one of the 10 great primordial spiritual roots of the primordial world, if it was so easy to possess, it would be too unworthy of his name. Not to mention, with the difficulty of the primordial spiritual roots transformation, even if Dijun possessed the Fusang Tree, it would probably be very difficult for him to transform. Among the 10 great primordial spiritual roots of the primordial world, only 2 people had transformed. One was the primordial hollow willow, Yangmei Immortal, and the other was the primordial Bodhi tree, Taoist Kundi. Of these 2, one was the primordial chaos Dalio Jinxian, and the other was a saint. It could be seen how extraordinary the 10 great spiritual roots were. It was also because they were too extraordinary that it was almost impossible for the 10 great primordial spiritual roots to transform. Therefore, no matter what, Dijun would not possess the Fusang Tree. Firstly, he might not succeed. Secondly, even if he succeeded, he might not be able to obtain any benefits. It might even cause his life to be in danger. How could Dijun do such a strenuous and thankless task? Since the Fusang Tree had nothing to do with Dijun, Why did he block his way? He could not transform. It was useless to have the sun star. Moreover, as a divine object that suppressed the true fire of the sun, no matter who controlled the sun star, the status of the Fusang tree would not be shaken. In fact, the later Sun Star Master had to treat him with respect so as not to offend him. In Feng Zichen's heart, he did not intend to make things difficult for the Fusang tree. He even wanted to curry favor with it. However, it was somewhat thought-provoking that the Fusang tree was blocking the way at this time. Could it be that, after so many years of companionship, he and the brothers Dijun and Tai Yi had developed feelings for each other, and wanted to protect the sun star for them after they died and wait for them to return? All kinds of guesses appeared in Feng Zichen's mind. Poor Wei Fusang greets the Emperor Star Master. Just as Feng Zichen was feeling puzzled, the Fusang tree opened its mouth and bowed to him. Greetings, fellow Taoist Fusang. May I know why you are here, fellow Taoist? Feng Zichen returned the bow and asked directly. As he spoke, a terrifying aura rose from his body and locked onto the Fusang tree. It was as if the other party could not say a satisfactory result, he would receive a thunderous blow. Now, his fist was the biggest, so he naturally did not need to reason with others. That was because his reason was the greatest reason of the primordial world. Beating around the bush and not being able to get to the main point was a situation that would only happen when their strength was similar. If there was a huge difference in strength between the two sides, then of course the stronger side would say whatever they wanted. Not to mention, Feng Zichen did not have much time to talk nonsense with the Fusang tree. It was better to get to the main point. Who knew how long his current strength could last? It was better to save some time. There must be a method left behind by Dijun in the core of the sun. There was still a tough battle to fight there. Star Master, don't misunderstand. I'm here because I have something to ask of you. The Fusang tree smiled bitterly and said, What is it? Feng Zichen replied concisely, I know that the Star Master has come here to control the Sun Star. However, there is the life mark left behind by Dijun in the core of the Sun Star. If he uses all his strength, he can even exert strength that is not inferior to his true body. Therefore, the Star Master's trip might not be very smooth. However, with this old man's help, the Star Master will definitely get what he wants on this trip. The Fusang tree did not say its request. Instead, it beat around the bush with Feng Zichen. Conditions. Feng Zichen still said concisely. He was not afraid of Dijun's mark. Not to mention the two marks, even if the two of them were resurrected at this time, they would not be a match for the current Feng Zichen. Chapter 521. But in that case, it would undoubtedly delay some time and affect the next operation. Therefore, Feng Zichen planned to listen to the conditions of the Fusang tree. If they were not excessive, he did not mind doing the Fusang tree a favor. I have no other intentions. I only hope that after the Master of the Stars controls the sun, you can use the origin of the sun to condense an innate God-fiend body for me. The Fusang tree said excitedly. He had planned this for a long time. Even when Tai Dijun was still alive, he had proposed it to the two of them. For this, he had made all kinds of promises. Unfortunately, Dijun still refused. It was also because of this that the relationship between the Fusang tree and the two brothers was not good. Originally, the Fusang tree was already in despair. But it did not expect that things would take a turn for the better. The two brothers, Tai Dijun, who were almost invincible, had actually fallen. The will of heaven had revealed that the boundless starry sky would welcome a new master. At that time, the Fusang tree knew that its chance had come. If it could get the help of the new master of the boundless starry sky, then its plan would definitely succeed. Therefore, the Fusang tree came. It appeared before the core of the sun, because it knew. If it wanted to control the boundless starry sky, it had to control the sun star. Then the new master of the boundless starry sky would definitely pass by this place. The Fusang tree wanted to be free, but it could not transform. For this, it thought hard for a long time and finally came up with a feasible solution. That was to abandon its physical body and appear in the primordial world with a new identity. But the indestructible true spirit of the Fusang tree was too strong. In the primordial world, the only thing that could carry its true spirit was the origin of the sun star, which was of the same origin as it. Therefore, it begged Dijun to use the origin of the sun star to create a body of the innate godfiend level for it to carry its true spirit. In order to achieve this goal, the Fusang tree even promised to serve Dijun. But Dijun thought for a long time and still refused. This was because the Fusang tree was formed from the essence of the sun star. It would definitely weaken the luck of the sun star, which would greatly affect Dijun and Tai. In order to prevent the sun star's luck from dissipating, Dijun didn't even allow other living beings to appear on the sun star. He even imprisoned all the fire spirits. From this, it can be seen that he valued the luck of the sun. How could Dijun agree to the Fusang tree's request? Being rejected was normal. Fellow Taoist, you sure know how to joke. If I let you take the form of the essence of the sun star, it would be hard to say whether the sun star would belong to me or you. Looking at the expectant Fusang tree, Feng Zichen said with a hint of mockery. He had almost guessed the Fusang tree's plan. Feng Zichen understood the Fusang tree's desire for freedom. However, understanding was one thing. He would never agree to the Fusang tree's suggestion. Again, if the Fusang tree took the form of the sun star, who would the sun star belong to? One had to know that. The innate star god had absolute dominance over the stars. Feng Zichen didn't think that after the Fusang tree took form, he would be able to snatch the dominance of the sun star from his hands. Star Master, don't misunderstand. I really don't have any thoughts about the sun star. Oh right, I can also make a heavenly oath. If I have any thoughts about the sun star, then let the heavens and earth destroy me. Now, Feng Zichen could be said to be the only hope of the Fusang tree. Seeing that he had the intention to refuse, the Fusang tree immediately became a little anxious. It quickly explained and even wanted to make a heavenly oath. Hearing this, Feng Zichen was a little hesitant. He felt that since the Fusang tree had already said so much, if he didn't agree, it would seem a little unreasonable. Moreover, if the Fusang tree could take form, it was very likely that it would become the primordial chaos Dalio Jinxian in the future. No matter how bad it would still be a top-notch great magician. If he were to do him a favor today, he would definitely gain his friendship, and he would also be able to gain a powerful ally for himself. Not to mention, in this matter, he would only lose some of the sun star's origin. It was really nothing. This deal seemed to be doable. Star Master, think about it. Although Dijun Tai has fallen, they have already cultivated to the immortal and indestructible primordial chaos Dao realm. Sooner or later, they will return and compete with you for the position of Sun Star Master. At that time, although Star Master is the lord of the boundless starry sky and has a noble status, to the Sun Star, you are just an outsider. How can you compete with Dijun Tai brothers? If I can become the innate godfiend born by the Sun Star, then things will be much simpler. I will definitely share some of the pressure for you, Star Master. After Dijun Tai brothers return, the first person they will deal with will definitely be me. After that, it will be your turn. Moreover, after I transform with the origin of the Sun Star, the impact on Dijun Tai will not be so great. Once I am born, I will definitely share the favor of the Sun Star on Dijun Tai brothers. In this way, the luck on the two of them will not be as strong as before. Correspondingly, their strength will more or less be affected. Seeing that Feng Zichen was about to waver, the Fusang tree hurriedly struck while the iron was hot and told him about the various benefits that it brought after transforming with the origin of the Sun Star. The Fusang tree's words really touched Feng Zichen's heart. The return of Dijun Tai brothers was inevitable and unstoppable. As long as there were still traces of them in the world, they could rely on this to return. Therefore, Feng Zichen had been worried about how he could protect the Sun Star after Dijun Tai brothers returned. The position of the Lord of the boundless starry sky was definitely something that no one could snatch away. However, it was not necessarily the case for the Sun Star. Compared to Feng Zichen, the brothers Dijun Tai brothers were the biological sons of the Sun Star. As for Feng Zichen Tai, he was just an outsider, An outsider was an outsider. How could he be compared to his biological son? Now that his biological son was not around, the Sun Star could still tolerate Feng Zichentai brothers controlling him. However, once his biological son returned, Feng Zichentai brothers, an outsider, would seem to be in the way. He would definitely be ostracized by the Sun Star. This kind of situation was completely irreversible. Even if he predicted it in advance, he would not be able to change anything. After all, if he wanted to treat his biological son well, everyone would say that he was not. However, if he agreed to the Fusang Tree's plan, everything would be different. In the face of the battle between his biological sons, the Sun Star could only watch from the sidelines to show his fairness. As for Feng Zichentai brothers, he could completely stay out of the matter and watch the development of the situation. He could even secretly help the Fusang Tree to prevent it from being defeated by the brothers Dijuntai brothers. The Fusang Tree's plan was really wonderful. Feng Zichentai brothers really had no reason to refuse. From this, it could be seen that the Fusang Tree's desire for freedom was already somewhat desperate. For this reason, it even did not hesitate to offend the brothers Dijuntai brothers. If Dijuntai brothers really returned, the person he wanted to kill the most would probably not be Feng Zichentai brothers, but the Fusang Tree. Similarly, the person who wanted Dijuntai brothers to die the most in the primordial world was the Fusang Tree. Fellow Taoist, I agree. If you help me take down the Sun Star, I will use the origin of the Sun Star to condense an innate god-fiend body for you. After making up his mind, Feng Zichentai brothers did not hesitate and directly agreed to the Fusang Tree's conditions. He did not bargain or make any more excessive requests, because, in that case, it would not be a favor but an enmity. Okay. It's good that the Master of the Stars agrees. I will help the Master suppress the Sun Star right away. Seeing Feng Zichentai brothers nod in agreement, the Fusang Tree was so excited that it trembled and quickly replied. Then, the Fusang Tree suddenly soared into the sky. It waved its huge roots and whipped towards the deepest part of the Sun Star. There was a rumble. Under the attack of the Fusang Tree, a huge passage appeared in front of Feng Zichentai brothers. Master, at the end of this passage is the core of the sun. As long as you imprint your imprint on the core, you will be in control of the Sun Star. As for the imprint left behind by Dijuntai, with me suppressing the Sun Star, they will never be able to borrow a trace of the Sun Star's power. In this way, with their own strength, they will definitely not be a match for the Master of the Stars. In the huge tree body, the buzzing sound of the Fusang Tree sounded. Thank you, fellow Taoist. Feng Zichen thanked him and hurriedly followed the passage to the core of the Sun Star. What a thief! How dare you barge into this place? I will definitely not spare you. Feng Zichen had just entered the origin space of the Sun Star. Before he had time to size up his surroundings, he heard two loud roars. Then, two familiar figures appeared in front of Feng Zichen's eyes. It was Dijun and Tai. This was the life imprint that they had left at the core of the Sun Star. It was used to protect the Sun Star so that no one would take the opportunity to snatch the Sun Star when they were not around. Don't underestimate these two life imprints. With the support of the Sun Star, their strength could even reach the level of their true bodies. Therefore, Dijun and Tai were very relieved about this. Unfortunately, the strongest defense was often destroyed from the inside. Dijun and Tai probably would not have expected that their plan, which they thought was perfect, would become a complete joke with the betrayal of the Fusang Tree. The Fusang Tree had the ability to suppress the Sun Star. In addition, with the fall of Dijun and Tai, there was no one on the Sun Star who could keep him in check. It could be said that under the suppression of the Fusang Tree, the two imprints left behind by Dijun and Tai could not mobilize even a trace of power from the Sun Star. Die! Looking at Dijun and Tai who were charging at him, Feng Zichen smiled coldly. Then he clenched his right fist and punched out. Boom! He punched out. The stars moved. Along with Feng Zichen's punch, the illusory images of stars appeared and evolved in the void, forming various worlds. In those worlds, majestic gods and demons appeared. Like Feng Zichen, they clenched their right fists and punched out. Boom! It was as if the universe had collapsed and the universe had been destroyed. A great destructive force erupted from the void. The two imprints left behind by Dijun and Tai were instantly shattered into nothingness. This was the celestial fiend god fist. It was the latest supreme divine ability created by Feng Zichen. Zhouxing evolved into the myriad worlds, using the myriad worlds to produce endless gods and demons. With a combined punch, he struck out with the ultimate power and destroyed everything. What a pity! It's just two imprints. If their original bodies were still here, I would be the one who fell today. Looking in the direction where Dijun and Tai had disappeared, Feng Zichen shook his head and put his thoughts aside. He came to the core of the sun star. Although it was called a core, it was more like an eye. Pangu's left eye. The sun star was born from the fusion of Pangu's left eye and the land of extreme yang in the primordial world. The star core was like an eye. There was nothing wrong with it. Pangu's left eye. One eye is so powerful. It turned into a supreme sun and brought endless light and vitality to the primordial world. How can I not know how powerful Pangu was when he was at his peak? Looking at Pangu's left eye, Feng Zichen once again sighed at Pangu's power. Every time he approached Pangu's ruins, he would reminisce about Pangu's power. This was his yearning for the strong. It was precisely because of Pangu's benchmark that everyone knew that Daluo Jingxian was not the end of the Great Tao. Primordial Daluo Jingxian was also not the end of the Great Tao. There was an even greater realm above them. As a result, everyone was encouraged to move forward and open up the Daluo realm, the Quasi-Saint realm, and even the Primordial Tao realm. By the way, could there be a part of Pangu's inheritance in Pangu's left eye? Feng Zichen, who was about to put his imprint into Pangu's left eye, suddenly thought of a possibility. With this thought in mind, his movements also stopped. Actually, this idea was a little ridiculous. If Pangu's left eye really contained Pangu's inheritance, it would have been taken away by Tai Dijun a long time ago. How could it be left until today? However, in Feng Zichen's heart, there was a voice that kept telling him, perhaps what Tai Dijun took away was only the inheritance of the path of sun on the surface of Pangu's left eye. And they did not take away the inheritance of Pangu that truly belonged to the core. This was because Dijun had roamed the primordial world for so many years, but no one had ever seen them use Pangu's style of magic. Even during the decisive battle between liches and demons, both sides had used all their trump cards, but they had never used them. From this, it could be seen that they really did not obtain Pangu's inheritance. Moreover, regarding intuition, Feng Zichen still believed in it. The higher the realm, the more accurate his intuition was. Now that his premonition was so strong, it meant that there might really be a great opportunity in Pangu's left eye. Then let's give it a try? Anyway, there was nothing to lose if he failed. If he succeeded, he would really make a lot of money. With this thought in mind, Feng Zichen stopped imprinting his imprint. Instead, he activated his supernatural power and revealed the Tao pattern on his forehead that was bestowed by the Great Tao. Zichen, Pangu's Zichen clan. This was the name that the Great Tao had bestowed upon him. It was his true name, and it was also the symbol of his chaos creatures. It was also the key to his transformation into a chaos demon god in the future. Of course, this also represented his true identity as Pangu. Chapter 522. It was precisely because of this divine pattern of the Great Path that Feng Zichen dared to call himself the authentic Pangu. Otherwise, did you think that anyone who obtained the inheritance of the Pangu could display the banner of the authentic Pangu? Only those like Feng Zichen who were personally recognized by the Great Path, or those like the 12 ancestors of the which 3 pure ones, who were transformed from the origin of the Pangu, were qualified to call themselves the authentic Pangu. This was the orthodox of the primordial world. Boom! An extremely pure Pangu aura surged out from Feng Zichen's body and resonated with the Pangu's left eye. In an instant, the Pangu's left eye moved, as if it had come to life. Its entire body rose into the air. A vast and mighty aura bloomed from his body and shrouded Feng Zichen in an incomparable manner. In this sudden change, Feng Zichen only felt that its will was constantly sinking. It was about to head to a mysterious and unknown area. At the same time, grotesque images appeared in front of his eyes one after another, explaining the ancient legends for him. Finally, Feng Zichen's sinking will stopped. It had arrived at its destination. After coming back to its senses, Feng Zichen looked around and saw that all it could see was nothingness. It was vast and boundless. This was a space of chaos and nothingness. The great chaos of the outer realm? Looking at the slightly familiar scene in front of him, Feng Zichen was a little surprised and uncertain. The space of chaos and nothingness in front of him was clearly the same as the great chaos of the outer realm in his memory. As the place where he had once attained the Tao, Feng Zichen was naturally very familiar with it. He would never mistake it. Why am I here? However, before Feng Zichen could figure out what was going on, the space of chaos in front of him suddenly changed. Boundless visions appeared. The momentum was so great that it enveloped an unknown amount of chaos and nothingness. It was as if the entire chaos was celebrating. Then the scene began to spin rapidly. Chaos demon gods of different shapes and sizes, but with boundless Tao runes, appeared in the chaos and nothingness. They were either sitting and discussing the Tao or fighting with each other to verify what they had learned. They were living happily. In addition to the chaos demon gods, there were also dangerous places and places of fortune. The dangerous places in the chaos were truly dangerous. If the primordial Daluo Jingxian fell into them, even if he didn't die, he would lose a layer of his skin. Dangerous places were dangerous places. Correspondingly, the opportunities were also astonishingly great. There were even opportunities for the primordial Daluo Jingxian. Unfortunately, these good things could only be seen but not touched. Otherwise, Feng Zichen would have pounced on her regardless of the consequences. Although there were battles in the primal chaos, most of the time it was still peaceful. After all, the chaos was too big. To God to meet them. After meeting to meet them meet the demon Pangu. Unfortunately, peace was meant to be broken in the end. Suddenly, one day, the chaos let out a loud wail. All the chaos demon gods pounced towards the same place almost at the same time. Then, it was an unprecedented battle. Just like that, it suddenly erupted. Beams of stunning axe light came from the void and killed the chaos demon gods that pounced on them one by one. At the same time, wherever the axe light passed, the chaos was cut open, giving birth to a clear and turbid aura. A vast world was faintly taking shape. Pangu split open the sky. This scene recorded that when Pangu split open the sky and earth in the chaos, 3,000 chaos demon gods came to stop him. These scenes are all what Pangu personally experienced in the past. They were recorded by his left eye. Seeing this, how could Feng Zichen not understand what kind of heaven-defying opportunity he had obtained? This was Pangu's left eye. It displayed everything that Pangu had experienced in the past in front of him. Pangu's life experience was so vast. Even a little bit of it was enough for Feng Zichen to benefit for the rest of his life, not to mention all his experiences. If he could digest all these memories, Feng Zichen's realm would not be improved, but it would be infinitely beneficial for his future. At the very least, his future path would be widened. Whether it was his foundation, experience, or comprehension of the Great Tao, Feng Zichen had been greatly improved. From now on, primordial chaos Daluo Jingxian was no longer his endpoint, but his new starting point. As long as he digested Pangu's memories, he would definitely be able to reach the realm above primordial chaos. With the opening of the primordial world, the memories contained in Pangu's left eye also stopped abruptly. The entire chaos space also collapsed. In the blink of an eye, Feng Zichen's environment changed drastically. He came to another space, a mysterious purple space. In the center of this space, there was a circular ball of light completely formed by the patterns of the Great Tao. Countless runes of the Great Tao flowed on it, and its entire body emitted a rich aura of the Great Tao. It was extremely mysterious and magical. It made people unable to help but be addicted to it and swim in the ocean of the Great Tao. This is curious. Feng Zichen released his divine consciousness and carefully came into contact with it. Immediately, all kinds of insights about the great Tao of the sun, as well as some unfathomable eye techniques, followed Feng Zichen's divine consciousness and surged into his sea of consciousness. Feeling that the information transmitted was a little messy and varied, Feng Zichen hurriedly cut off his connection with the ball of light. The origin of Pangu's left eye? After closing his eyes and sorting out the information he had obtained for a while, Feng Zichen understood the origin of this object. The true core of the sun star was also where its origin was. Without any hesitation, Feng Zichen immediately imprinted his imprint on it. Because of Pangu's aura, the core of the sun star did not resist Feng Zichen and fell into his hands easily. In this way, the sun star was set. Condense. The first thing Feng Zichen did after controlling the sun star was to fulfill his promise to the Fusang tree and condense an innate God-fiend body for it. This wasn't particularly difficult for the sun star master. Rumble. In the depths of the sun star's origin was restless and gathered towards the Fusang tree, gradually condensing into the embryonic form of the innate Tao embryo. It was very easy to condense the innate Tao embryo, but it would take a long time for it to truly take shape and even mature. At any time, the birth of the innate God-fiend required time. Of course, if Feng Zichen did not hesitate to consume the sun star's origin on a large scale, it might speed up the process. But why would he do that? After condensing the innate Tao embryo, Feng Zichen would have fulfilled his promise to the Fusang tree. As for the rest, the Fusang tree would have to worry about it. Thinking about it, the Fusang tree had planned for a long time for this day. It definitely had a way to speed up the birth of the innate Tao embryo. However, all of this had nothing to do with Feng Zichen. The sun star had fallen into his control. It was time for him to leave this place and head to his next target. Fellow Fusang, don't forget the oath that day. Before leaving, Feng Zichen sent a voice transmission to the Fusang tree. This was a reminder and a warning. I won't forget. Don't worry, Star Master. After my incarnation is born, I will definitely leave the sun star as soon as possible. I will not stay here. On the other side, the Fusang tree, who was pulling the innate Tao embryo down, hurriedly promised after hearing Feng Zichen's voice transmission. That's good. After saying that, Feng Zichen left the sun star. However, just as he left, the Fusang tree's voice came from afar. Thank you for today's matter, Star Master. In the future, if Star Master has any orders, I will do my best to do it. Hearing this, Feng Zichen could not help but smile. This would be a great help to him in the future. With a thought, the galaxy rotated. Feng Zichen's figure had already disappeared from the sun star. When he reappeared, he was already outside the South Pole star. The South Pole star was one of the most powerful main stars in Zhousing apart from the three supreme stars. Only the Gaochen star could be compared to it. Of the 4 celestial emperors who ruled the heavens in the future, 3 of them came from the boundless starry sky. Other than Emperor Ziwei, who represented the Ziwei star, there was the South Pole Longevity Emperor who represented the South Pole star, and the Gaochen Heavenly Emperor who represented the Gaochen star. From this, it could be seen how respected the South Pole star was. Its importance was self-evident. There was a saying that the Big Dipper was in charge of death, while the Southern Dipper was in charge of life. In ancient legends, the 6-star lords of the Southern Dipper were the heavenly officials who managed all the humans, demons, spirits, gods, immortals, and other living beings in the world. The well-being of all living beings was in the control of the South Pole star. Therefore, the South Pole star was in charge of life and had a particularly respected status. Because the South Dipper specialized in survival, it was also known as the prolonging life. Think about it. A star that symbolized luck, fortune, lifespan, and so on, occupied an important position in the operation of the heavenly path. The South Pole star must not fall into the control of outsiders, especially when the South Pole Star Lord was still alive. The in-name disciple of the Heavenly Lord of the Primordial Beginning, the South Pole Immortal Elder, was the South Pole Star Lord and the future South Pole Longevity Emperor. If Feng Zichen did not control the South Pole Star in time, with the support of the Heavenly Lord of the Primordial Beginning, the South Pole Immortal Elder would definitely become an existence that the saint could check and balance. At that time, no matter how strong the forces of the boundless starry sky were, as long as the South Pole Immortal Elder caused trouble, they would definitely not be able to contend against the saint. Therefore, the South Pole Star. He had to get it. With a step, Feng Zichen arrived at the core of the South Pole Star. During this period, only the imprint of a demon saint came to stop him. But how could a demon god that was not born in the South Pole Star be a match for Feng Zichen? With a wave of his hand, he crushed it. After all, the South Pole Star was far inferior to the Sun Star. The arrangement of the demon race against him could not be compared to the Sun Star at all. Therefore, his resistance was far inferior to the Sun Star. As long as I control the South Pole Star, this Zhouxing will all fall into my hands. Imprinting his imprint on the core of the South Pole Star, Feng Zichen seemed a little excited. His wish for many years had finally come true. Who could remain calm at such an exciting moment? Speaking of which, Feng Zichen had to thank the demon race for being able to control the boundless starry sky so quickly. If it weren't for the fact that the demon race had killed most of the innate star gods in order to control the heavenly cycle star gods, today Feng Zichen would have to fight with those star gods. Although Feng Zichen was not afraid, it was still troublesome and would affect his reputation. But now, they were all almost dead. It saved Feng Zichen a lot of effort. Who is it? Who is stealing the poor Wei's South Pole Star? Just as Feng Zichen was about to control the South Pole Star, the South Pole Immortal's shocked and angry voice suddenly came from Kunlun Mountain. As the biological son of the South Pole Star, the South Pole Immortal naturally noticed the changes that happened on the South Pole Star immediately. This really shocked and angered him. It was not easy for him to wait for the demon race to be destroyed, and he was about to regain control of the South Pole Star. But at this critical moment, someone actually beat him to it and took control of the South Pole Star before him. How could the South Pole Immortal accept this? He was about to explode with anger. He had waited for countless years for hope. Before he could be happy for long, it was shattered again in the blink of an eye. The difference in this was enough to make people collapse in an instant. It was only because the South Pole Immortal cultivated the righteous path of the celestial sect that he managed to survive. Otherwise, he would have been angered to death. Even so, he did not feel good at this moment. He only felt that the blood in his body was surging, and he wanted to vomit on the spot. Fortunately, he suppressed it. What a thief! How dare you steal the poor Wei's life foundation? The poor Wei will never let you have an easy time. He made up his mind to give the thief retribution. The South Pole Immortal roared in grief and indignation. Disciple South Pole, please uphold justice for me. Teacher. His voice was so loud that it spread throughout the entire Kunlun Mountain. The misery contained in it made people cry. Hearing this voice, all the living beings on Kunlun Mountain stopped what they were doing and looked at the South Pole Immortal. They did not know what had happened to make him, a disciple of the Chan school, so miserable. The South Pole Immortal was not a fool. He knew that the person who could snatch the South Pole Star at this time was definitely a big shot that he could not afford to offend. If he wanted to give him retribution or even take back the South Pole Star, there was probably no hope for him in this lifetime. Therefore, it was better to ask his teacher to make a move. Wasn't this the purpose of his apprenticeship? As a Khanate god fiend, the South Pole Immortal did not lack Tao scriptures, magical powers, and Dharma treasures. What he lacked was a huge backer who could stand up for him at the critical moment. The Heavenly Lord of the Primordial Beginning was in line with this. As for whether the Heavenly Lord of the Primordial Beginning could snatch back the South Pole Star, the South Pole Immortal was still very confident about this. The Heavenly Lord of the Primordial Beginning was a saint. Unless other saints made a move, he would definitely be able to snatch back the South Pole Star. He would even teach the person who dared to snatch the South Pole Star a lesson and ruthlessly embarrass him to vent his anger. Just as the South Pole Immortal was fantasizing, the Heavenly Lord of the Primordial Beginning also made a move. No, it was not just the Heavenly Lord of the Primordial Beginning. It could be said that other than Yuhua and the Hutu, The other 5 saints all made a move and looked at the South Pole Star. Chapter 523. The request of the South Pole Immortal was naturally sensed by the Heavenly Lord of the primordial beginning. He frowned slightly, and with a thought, he deduced the cause and effect of this matter. Then his expression changed. With his strength, he naturally guessed who had taken away the South Pole Star at the first moment. The boundless starry sky was completely enveloped by the Milky Way cosmic light array, and outsiders could not enter at all. The one who attacked the South Pole Star was naturally the Ziwei Star Master. What did he want to do? What did he want to do? The Heavenly Lord of the primordial beginning was shocked and angry. The Ziwei Star Master controlled the South Pole Star. Other than wanting to get his hands on Zhouxing, what other reason could he find? This was something that the saints would never allow. Dijun had just left, and now the Ziwei Star Master had come. Wouldn't what they had done before become a joke? How dare you? Therefore, the Heavenly Lord of the primordial beginning did not hesitate to attack. He raised the 3 Jade Rui and attacked the Ziwei Star. The Milky Way cosmic light array sealed the boundless starry sky and could block many magic treasures. But the 3 Jade Rui was an exception. What was the 3 treasures? The sun, the moon, and the stars. The 3 Jade Rui had the same origin as Zhouxing, so how could the Milky Way cosmic light array stop it? Heavenly Lord of the primordial beginning, you've gone too far. On the Ziwei Star, Feng Zichen retracted his spiritual sense and controlled the Pangu divine being. With a flick of his finger, he sent the 3 Jade Rui flying. After all, he had taught him for a period of time. Feng Zichen did not want to cause too much trouble with the Heavenly Lord of the primordial beginning, so he secretly held back. He only sent the 3 Jade Rui flying and did not take the opportunity to plot against him. Unfortunately, Feng Zichen held back, but the Heavenly Lord of the primordial beginning might not appreciate it. After he took back the 3 Jade Rui, he took out the Pangu banner and came to the boundless starry sky. The Pangu banner was transformed from the blade of the sky-splitting axe. It was the top innate merit treasure and had the power to split the heavens and earth. If the Heavenly Lord of the primordial beginning really used the Pangu banner with all his strength, he could definitely split the Milky Way cosmic light array. Heavenly Lord of the primordial beginning, what is the meaning of this? At this moment, Feng Zichen's face darkened. Because of Shenqing, he could be somewhat courteous to the 3 pure ones. However, there was a bottom line to this courtesy, and the boundless starry sky was his bottom line. This was the foundation of his path, and no one could touch it. If you move, don't blame me for being ruthless. Fellow Taoist Ziwei, the South Pole Star is the birthplace of the Poor Wei's disciple, the South Pole Immortal. So, fellow Taoist, please do me a favor and give this place to the disciple of the Poor Wei. After the blow just now, the Heavenly Lord of the Origin had almost tested the strength of Feng Zichen. With the support of the boundless starry sky, Feng Zichen might not be inferior to the Heavenly Lord. Therefore, the Heavenly Lord of the Origin was afraid of Feng Zichen. He did not want to fall out with Feng Zichen directly and planned to talk to him first. If negotiations were to fail, it wouldn't be too late to make a move then. Haha! Hearing this, Feng Zichen laughed loudly. Fellow Taoist, why are you laughing? Seeing Feng Zichen laugh, the Heavenly Lord of the Origin felt that he was losing face, so he suppressed his anger and asked, I'm laughing at your big face. When the demon clan controlled Zhouxing, why didn't you, the Heavenly Lord of the Origin, ask for it? Now you're asking me for it. You're clearly bullying me because I'm weak. You sound so righteous, but in fact, you're just bullying the weak and fearing the strong. Hey, the so-called saint is nothing more than this. For some benefits, you don't even care about your face. What's the difference between you and all living beings? Looking at the Heavenly Lord of the Origin, Feng Zichen said mockingly, what was bullying the weak and fearing the strong? That was it. When the demon clan was powerful, they didn't dare to speak. Now that he had just appeared in the world, he couldn't wait to come and ask for benefits. Although this was human nature, when it came to a saint, his table manners were particularly ugly. You The heavenly lord of the Origin's face turned red when he heard Feng Zichen's words. He wished he could leave on the spot. However, this matter concerned the boundless starry sky, and he couldn't really leave. For a moment, he was in a dilemma, and his face turned even redder. Seeing this scene, Feng Zichen was extremely happy. He had been holding these words in his heart for a long time. As a saint, he should naturally seek benefits for the world. But what about these saints? For some personal benefits, they ignored their responsibilities and schemed all day long to steal the origin of the world, causing the primordial world to decline more and more. If the saints didn't die, the bandits wouldn't stop. The saints were the greatest bandits in the world. They never took their responsibilities seriously. They only wanted to use everything to help themselves become stronger. That was why Feng Zichen mocked them. He tore off the hypocritical masks on their faces and exposed the saints' selfish, ugly faces of bullying the weak and fearing the strong. As for whether he would offend them because of this, Feng Zichen didn't care at all. When he decided to become the lord of the boundless starry sky, he had already offended the saints. It didn't matter if he offended them a little more or less. Of course, what gave Feng Zichen the most confidence to say these words was that the saints had no way to deal with him now. With the boundless starry sky and Zhouxing behind him, he was no weaker than the saints in terms of strength. In addition, he had contributed a lot in this apocalyptic calamity. He could be called the savior of the world and had already received the favor of the world. The heavenly Tao wouldn't let him die. He had just saved the world, and the saints couldn't wait to kill him. In the future, who would dare to work for the world? Therefore, no matter what, the heavenly Tao wouldn't let Feng Zichen die. At the very least, the heavenly Tao would always protect him before he was exhausted. Moreover, Feng Zichen's background was too noble. He was the lord of the stars the moment he was born, and his status was enhanced. If there was no suitable reason, how could he be killed so easily? Did he still want the outline of heaven and earth? All of these were the reasons why Feng Zichen wasn't afraid of the saints. Oh! At this moment, the other saints looked at each other and didn't know what to say for a moment. As for those great divine abilities, they were so shocked that they couldn't speak. They had seen fierce people, but they had never seen such fierce people. Although what you said was the truth, and everyone knew it. But you said it so bluntly, where did you put the saints? Did you really think that the saints didn't care about their face? Strong, really too strong. Since the birth of the saints, there was only one person who dared to slap the saints in the face like this. If the saints didn't give him retribution today, they would probably lose all face from now on and lose all prestige in the primordial world. Hee hee. At this moment, Nuwa suddenly laughed. She didn't establish a sect. The Taoist field was in the chaos beyond the heavens. She never participated in the disputes of heaven and earth. It could be said that Feng Zichen's ridicule had nothing to do with her. Of course, she was happy to see a joke at this moment. Moreover, she was one of the few people in the primordial world who knew the identity of the Ziwei Star Lord. Now that she had appeared, she had the intention of supporting Feng Zichen. Hearing Nuwa's laughter, the heavenly lord of primordial beginning's face turned even uglier. He even had the tendency to not be able to suppress his anger and wanted to teach Feng Zichen a lesson. Fellow Taoist Ziwei, your words are a little too much. At this moment, the Grand Pure One spoke. As the leader of the saints and the eldest senior brother of everyone, he had to speak at this moment. Otherwise, the dignity of the saints would really be ruthlessly trampled under others' feet. Hearing this, the heavenly lord of primordial beginning silently retreated and left everything to the Grand Pure One to handle. Oh! What I said was a little too much. May I know what advice the Grand Pure One has? Feng Zichen smiled, showing a humble attitude of asking for advice. I don't dare to accept your advice. However, there's one thing that I should let you know. The demons are too domineering. First, they killed the heavenly cycle star god. Then, they occupied Zhouxing. That led to today's calamity. Fellow Taoist, please take note of this. The Grand Pure One narrowed his eyes and said slowly, after all, he was the eldest senior brother. His realm was different. He did not mention the matter of bullying the weak and fearing the strong at all. Instead, he used the fate of the demons to threaten Feng Zichen. It was really brilliant. However, Feng Zichen clearly did not fall for it. The Grand Pure One is indeed the leader of the saints and the eldest direct disciple of the Tao ancestor. His words are indeed different. Feng Zichen nodded and agreed. What the Grand Pure One said really makes sense. The demons acted recklessly in the boundless starry sky and massacred their fellow Taoists. As a result, the heavenly cycle star god was almost wiped out. That's why today's calamity happened. However, at this point, Feng Zichen paused and changed his tone. Zhouxing of the demons has long been destroyed by the aftermath of the battle between the liches and demons. I used all my means to repair the current Zhouxing. It has nothing to do with the star gods from before. Moreover, when they gave up on the stars that nurtured them and fled to the primordial world, they were no longer qualified to call themselves star gods. Now, the demons no longer have the power to control Zhouxing. I will succeed them. Instead, they appeared one by one to take back the stars. How shameless! What were you doing earlier? The demons are powerful. It's understandable that they don't dare to go forward in order to protect themselves. But why didn't they show up to help me when I was repairing the heavenly cycle of stars? After I finished everything, they appeared and came to pick the fruits. Why? Do you really think I'm easy to bully? The more Feng Zichen spoke, the more agitated he became. His voice was so loud that the entire primordial world could hear it. The South Pole immortal on Kunlun Mountain blushed and couldn't raise his head. However, it was impossible for him to give up the South Pole star. Compared to the future path of Tao, what was face? However, no matter what, after Feng Zichen's announcement, the entire primordial world knew what had happened. Those star gods who dared to have designs on the stars would probably not be able to raise their heads in the primordial world in the future. Their reputation would be completely ruined. Even the saints who supported them would not be any better. Although the living beings did not dare to be disrespectful to the saints, they would inevitably complain in their hearts. It was fine if 1 or 2 people complained. It would not affect the saints. However, if countless living beings complained together, the human Tao would definitely sense it. At that time, the saints would suffer. Damn it! At this moment, the saint's face was completely black. He was extremely furious. What was wrong with this person? Why did he dare to say anything? He was really not afraid of death. Was he really going to fight them to the death? Killing intent, uncontrollable killing intent, rose in the saint's heart. At this moment, their eyes were filled with killing intent as they looked at Feng Zichen. If not for the obstruction of the galaxy cosmic light array, they would have been able to tear Feng Zichen into pieces with just their eyes. Yes, the saint's eyes could really kill. To be honest, the Grand Pure One and the others were also very wronged at this moment. They had not done anything yet, but they had been labeled as such. This person's mouth was really poisonous. Of course, even if the saints were wronged, there were others who were even more wronged than them. That was the great divinities present. What sins had they committed that they would continue to stay here and watch the Ziwei Star Master scold the saint? Although this was really satisfying. But it was satisfying. Trouble came with it. Today, the saint's face could be said to have been torn off alive and placed on the ground to be stepped on. It was extremely embarrassing. And they were just watching the show from the side. They watched the entire process of the saint losing face. At first, the great divine abilities did not care. But when they thought about it carefully, they realized that something was wrong. F***CK. The saint's embarrassing scene was seen by them. Then, after the incident with the saint's pride, would he silence them? If it were them, they would most likely do it. It was really terrifying to think about it. When the great divine abilities thought of this, their expressions changed on the spot. Only then did they feel lingering fear. But now that things had come to this, it was too late to leave. They could only force themselves to stay. However, there was one thing that made these great divine abilities very glad. That was that there were enough people who saw the saint lose face. In this way, it would not be so easy for the saint to silence them. Perhaps he would give up. The so-called law could not punish the masses. This was the case. Fortunately, there were enough people who saw this scene. If there were only 2 or 3 of them, then they would probably never see them again in the future. Everyone, let's do it! Unable to bear it any longer, the saints finally decided to take action. Although they could not kill the person, they could seal him on the Ziwei star so that he would never be able to be born. If this was a little too much, then they would restrict him to the boundless starry sky and let him dominate there and cultivate in peace. In short, they would never let him touch the primordial world. As for what the living beings who saw this scene thought, the saints no longer cared. At most, they would directly modify spacetime and frame the Ziwei Star Master for everything. In this way, all the problems would be solved. Modifying spacetime was definitely something that would not be successful in the past. But now, with the collapse of Mount Buzhou, the river of spacetime had lost its suppression and seemed to be restless. As a result, everyone had a feeling that they could enter the river of spacetime and travel through spacetime with a thought. Daluo Jinxian's ability to control spacetime seemed to have returned. This was also the reason why the saint was confident that he could complete the end after suppressing Feng Zichen. History was often written by the victors. As long as they won, wouldn't they be able to fabricate the reason for this matter? At this moment, the knowledge of all living beings about the saint would be transferred to Feng Zichen without a trace at the moment of their victory. Chapter 524. A momentary loss was nothing. Only the one who controlled the future could obtain true victory. Galactic cosmic light formation. Rise. Seeing the saint's expression, Feng Zichen knew that something was wrong. Without waiting for them to take the initiative to attack, he took the initiative to attack. He controlled the god of Pangu to attack the primeval lord of heaven. Boom! In an instant, the void shook, and all Daos wailed. An undetectable fist with unparalleled power blasted toward the primeval lord of heaven. Feeling this power, the primeval lord of heaven's expression changed on the spot. He subconsciously took out the Wutu apricot yellow flag and raised golden lotuses to protect himself. But unfortunately, it was useless. The power of the god of Pangu was too strong. The explosion of pure power seemed to be able to destroy the heavens and earth. The Wutu apricot yellow flag, which was known to have the strongest defense, couldn't even hold on for a breath before it was defeated. The golden lotus that rose up was shattered and sent flying by the Pangu god's fist. Along with it, the primeval lord of heaven was also sent flying. He crashed into the void, destroying hundreds of millions of miles of space. You're courting death. Climbing up from the void, the primeval lord of heaven looked at Feng Zichen with murderous intent. Under this attack, although he was not injured, he looked extremely embarrassed. Could be said that he had lost a lot of face. How could the proud primeval lord of heaven tolerate this? In his hand, the Pangu banner suddenly appeared, releasing a shocking chaotic sword chi as if to destroy everything. Die! Accompanied by a voice full of killing intent, the primeval lord of heaven waved the Pangu banner in his hand and shot out a vast chaotic sword chi. In a rage, the primeval lord of heaven used all his strength. The power of the Pangu banner was released. This attack alone was enough to destroy the world. Without a sound, the void was destroyed and all living things ceased to exist. Only a pitch-black chaotic sword chi was heading toward the boundless starry sky. Second brother, elder brother. Primeval Lord of Heaven, X3. Are you crazy? Hurry up and stop. The primeval Lord of Heaven's attack did not frighten Feng Zichen. Instead, it gave the saints such as the Grand Pure One a fright. What was he trying to do? Was he trying to destroy the boundless starry sky? The great calamity of Armageddon had just passed. Was the heavenly Lord of primordial beginning going to start another great calamity? It was no wonder that the saints were flustered. The primeval Lord of Heaven had lost his head in anger. The boundless starry sky had just suffered a great calamity and had yet to be completely repaired. How could it withstand the attack of the heavenly Lord of primordial beginning? He was afraid that this strike would shatter it once more. In this way, the heavenly Tao would never let them off. Last time, it could be said that it was a dereliction of duty, but this time there was no excuse. Therefore, without waiting for Feng Zichen to resist, the other sages all made their moves in an attempt to block this attack. But they were fast, and Feng Zichen was faster than them. Good timing! Feng Zichen laughed loudly. Using his supreme divine ability, the Buzhou seal, he activated the section of Mount Buzhou that he had previously collected and blasted it towards the chaotic sword Qi. Rumble! The universe shook. The divine mountain of Buzhou reappeared in the world, standing majestically between heaven and earth. Its vast divine might filled the air, suppressing the past, present, and future. Immediately, the space-time near Mount Buzhou froze. The pitch-black chaotic sword Qi was first frozen in the void, and then it quietly shattered. The fragment of Mount Buzhou can be used like this? Seeing this scene, the primeval Lord of Heaven was extremely regretful. If he had known that the section of Mount Buzhou had such great power, he would not have given it to Feng Zichen. Suppress the Emperor's Star Master first. Seeing that the attack of Pangu's banner did not hurt the boundless starry sky, the Grand Pure One and the other saints immediately changed their target and attacked Feng Zichen. 10,000 gods' tribulation. With a thought, Feng Zichen's Milky Way cosmic light burst out and changed. There was chaos Qi born and the power of spacetime surged. Gods and demons with powerful auras were born from the starry sky. They used all kinds of mysterious divine abilities and attacked the saints together. Boom! A torrent completely composed of divine abilities surged forward in a mighty manner. The Milky Way gave birth to 10,000 gods. Zhouxing had different attributes, each representing a mysterious and unfathomable connate path. Feng Zichen used the Milky Way cosmic light formation to operate the power of spacetime, distorting the past and the future, condensing the power of these connate paths and turning them into powerful gods and demons. The boundless starry sky contained unparalleled power. Mastering this power was enough to be comparable to a saint or even surpass him. In terms of cultivation, Feng Zichen was not as good as Di Jun. However, in terms of the use of the boundless starry sky, Di Jun was obviously not as good as Feng Zichen. Therefore, he could use the power of the boundless starry sky to fight with a saint. Boom! 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 In just a few breaths, Feng Zichen and the saints had fought several times. Terrifying power raged and almost collapsed the heavenly realm again. Crack! 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 Suddenly, a shattering sound came from the boundless starry sky. It was some stars that had cracked again. The stars had not fully recovered after all. They were not in their peak state and could not support Feng Zichen's high-intensity battle for a long time. After a few exchanges, they had reached their limits and were about to shatter again. Not good. Feng Zichen was shocked. The saints were not any better. If the boundless starry sky really shattered again, they, the culprits, would definitely be punished by the heavenly Tao. In an instant, Feng Zichen had the idea of stopping. At the same time, the saints were not prepared to fight anymore. Both sides looked at each other and understood each other's thoughts. They were about to stop fighting at the same time. But at this moment, Tiandao Hongjun suddenly appeared. A transcendent figure suddenly appeared in the center of the battle between the two sides. With a flip of his hand, he suppressed all 6 of them. Hiss! Is the heavenly Tao so strong? This was the only thought that Feng Zichen, Tai Ching, and the others had when they were suppressed by Tiandao Hongjun. The heavenly Tao was really too strong. They did not even have time to react to what had happened before they were suppressed by Tiandao Hongjun with a flip of his hand. It was really just a flip of his hand. They saw Tiandao Hongjun suddenly appear. Then, with a flip of his hand, an irresistible force descended and suppressed them. During this period, no matter how they resisted, it did not have the slightest effect. It was too terrifying. Tiandao Hongjun's move shocked, not to mention Feng Zichen and the others. Even the powerful beings who were watching the battle from the side were shocked. With a flip of his hand, he suppressed 5 saints and an existence that was not inferior to a saint. Was this really something that could be done at the primordial chaos level? Greetings, teacher. Shocked, everyone hurriedly bowed. Tiandao Hongjun ignored them and looked at Feng Zichen and the others. Are you going to destroy the primordial world? After looking at the six of them silently for a while, Tiandao Hongjun said expressionlessly. The heavenly Tao had no expression to begin with. We don't dare. Tao ancestor, teacher. We definitely don't have such thoughts. The aura emitted by Tiandao Hongjun brought great pressure to the six of them. They did not dare to act rashly and hurriedly lowered their heads to admit their mistakes. Then what were you doing just now? Tiandao Hongjun still said expressionlessly. This time the saints were speechless. They really could not say it. They could not say that they were afraid that Feng Zichen would control the boundless starry sky alone. So they attacked him to weaken his authority, right? If this were to be spread out, it would be embarrassing enough. But they had nothing to say. Feng Zichen had something to say. This matter, no matter what, he was in the right. Thus, Feng Zichen directly complained. Tao ancestor, please uphold justice for me. Today, there are saints 3 pure ones to receive Zhuan-Ti and the others. They don't think about the well-being of all living beings in the world. Instead, they fight for power and profit all day long, ignoring all living beings in the world. Today, they relied on their powerful cultivation to forcefully seize the boundless starry sky. I had no choice but to resist and almost made a big mistake. Tao ancestor, please uphold justice for me. Feng Zichen was evil. While complaining, he also slandered the saint. Yes, actually, it was not considered slandering. The saint was really to blame for the primordial world falling to such a state. You, slandering me. You were the one who made the first move. After hearing Feng Zichen's words, the faces of the Grand Pure One and the others darkened. No matter what, they could not admit it. Therefore, they seized on the fact that Feng Zichen was the first to make the first move and counterattacked. Regarding this, Feng Zichen was naturally unconvinced and immediately retorted. Next, both sides began to attack each other in front of Tiandao Hongjun. Shut up! They are all top figures of the primordial world. How can they make a ruckus here? Perhaps he was annoyed by their quarrel, Tiandao Hongjun said coldly. Both sides immediately stopped talking. They waited for Tiandao Hongjun's decision. Oh, both of you are at fault for today's matter. Since that's the case, I'll punish you to cultivate in seclusion. From now on, you are not allowed to interfere with the primordial world. After pondering for a while, Tiandao Hongjun said slowly, Oh no, I've been schemed against. Hearing this, Feng Zichen's heart skipped a beat. How could he not understand that he had been schemed against by Tiandao Hongjun? Otherwise, why didn't he appear earlier or later? Why did he appear when they were about to stop? This was clearly because he was afraid that if he acted too late, he would not be able to find an excuse to cause trouble for him. Destroying the boundless starry sky. What a good reason. With just one sentence, Feng Zichen could not come out of seclusion, let alone interfere in the affairs of the primordial world, easily cutting off his hope of becoming the heavenly emperor. What a good scheme! As the heavenly emperor, he was bound to descend to the heaven realm and control the heavens. What was going on with him staying in the boundless starry sky? Tiandao Hongjun's casual words made Feng Zichen have no chance of becoming the heavenly emperor, but he could not resist. The reason he used was very legitimate. The older the ginger, the spicier it was. Compared to Tiandao Hongjun, the methods of the saints fell to the bottom. Of course, Tiandao Hongjun was also more magnanimous than the saints. Although he had cut off his hope of becoming the heavenly emperor, he did not touch his foundation. He was still in charge of the boundless starry sky, allowing him to continue to shine for the primordial world. As for whether he could become the heavenly emperor, Feng Zichen did not have much hope. It was all because he was too strong. With Dijun as a precedent, unless there was something wrong with the heavenly Tao's brain, the heavenly emperor who succeeded the throne would definitely be the weakest among all the candidates. Only the weak could become the heavenly emperor. Only then would he not be a threat to the world. Feng Zichen was so strong, and he controlled the boundless starry sky. If he became the heavenly emperor, It would not be long before the entire primordial world would fall into his hands. At that time, the saints would also have to submit to him. Even the heavenly Tao would not be able to do anything to him. Therefore, as long as there was nothing wrong with the heavenly Tao, it was impossible for Feng Zichen to become the heavenly emperor. Feng Zichen had expected this. Therefore, he was not very enthusiastic about the position of the heavenly emperor. However, Feng Zichen had never expected that he would lose in such a way. Yes, teacher. While Feng Zichen was in a daze, the three pure ones and the other saints had already bowed to receive their punishment. Tiandao Hongjun's decision could be said to be beyond their expectations. They had thought that they would be severely punished this time, but they did not expect to be let off so easily. This made them very happy, especially the punishment for Feng Zichen that made them even more satisfied. If he could not leave the boundless starry sky, so what if he was strong? The rule that one could not interfere in the primordial world for no reason was simply set up solely for Feng Zichen. The saints preached on behalf of the heavens, and they were definitely indispensable for the operation of the primordial world. How could they be fine? On the other hand, Feng Zichen was in the boundless starry sky, and it was difficult for him to find an opportunity to go out. Wouldn't he be trapped to death? Obey the decree of the Tao ancestor? After coming back to his senses, Feng Zichen said expressionlessly. Did he really think that if he stayed in the boundless starry sky, he would not be able to interfere in the primordial world? How naive! One had to know that the Ziwei star was the star of the emperor. In the future, as long as an emperor was born, Feng Zichen would have a chance to interfere in the primordial world. For a moment, everyone had their own ulterior motives. After punishing the 6 people, Tiandao Hongjun looked at the primordial world. Then, he said leisurely, this great calamity was caused by the competitiveness of the cultivators. Therefore, heaven and earth decided to change the laws of the heavenly Tao, so that everyone would know that cultivation is not easy. In the future, we can focus on pursuing the Tao and avoid disputes. As he spoke, Tiandao Hongjun formed a mysterious seal and applied it to the primordial world. Inexplicably, a change silently occurred in the primordial world. Everyone released their spiritual senses to sense for a while, and their expressions changed drastically. In their perception, all the spiritual veins in the primordial world were no longer producing innate qi, but acquired qi instead. It was not to this extent. Even the innate qi that was spontaneously transformed by heaven and earth, as well as the innate qi that Feng Zichen obtained from operating Zhouxing, had spontaneously transformed into acquired qi the moment they entered the primordial world. Although the amount of newly produced acquired qi was dozens of times more than innate qi. But how could the quality of acquired qi be compared to innate qi? Could be foreseen that as time passed, innate qi would eventually become history, and the entire primordial world would be filled with acquired qi. Fortunately, the process of transforming innate qi into acquired qi was not done overnight. It required a long time to transform. In the end, the countless living beings of the primordial world had to slowly adapt. Otherwise, all innate qi would instantly transform into acquired qi, which would bring a huge disaster to the primordial world. Chapter 525. Those living beings who grew up in an innate environment would definitely not be able to adapt to the postnatal environment immediately. In this way, if the transformation was completed in an instant, who knew how many innocent living beings would wither and die because they could not adapt to the change in the environment? With so many living beings dying at the same time, the negative karma brought about would probably be difficult for the heavenly Tao to bear. Therefore, they needed to leave a long period of time for the living beings of the primordial world to do their best to evolve themselves so that they could better adapt to the easier primordial world. The heavenly Tao had already left time for all living beings. If all living beings did not complete their transformation within this time, then they could not blame the heavenly Tao for their destruction. Natural selection, survival of the fittest. Evolution had always been cruel. As time passed bit by bit, more changes in the world were sensed by everyone. In an instant, everyone's faces darkened. The myriad Tao of heaven and earth became more and more obscure. It was as if there was a thin layer of fog in front of the great Tao, making it difficult for people to see clearly. In other words, the difficulty of cultivation in the future would undoubtedly increase greatly. If cultivators wanted to comprehend the heavenly Tao, it would not be as simple as before. Of course, the changes in the myriad Tao of heaven and earth were not overnight. Just like the transformation of Khanate Qi into postnatal Qi, it also required a long period of time for all living beings to adapt. However, according to the calculations of the powerful figures, when the changes in the myriad Tao of heaven and earth reached their peak, the difficulty of attaining the Tao of Tai Jingxian in the future would probably be about the same as the difficulty of attaining the half-step Dalio Jingxian now. The situation was not optimistic. The scene of Dalio Jingxian walking everywhere and countless Tai Jingxian would probably not appear in the future. However, what made the powerful figures feel fortunate was that although the environment of heaven and earth was changing, their dojos were not affected and still maintained their original state. As long as they didn't suffer too great of a loss for their own interests, they felt very comfortable. They believed that after this great calamity of heaven and earth, the already extraordinary Holy Land would become even more extraordinary. After all, this was one of the few places in the primordial world that still maintained the ancient cultivation environment. Hee hee. Seeing everyone's excited look, Feng Zichen sneered in his heart. Of course, he knew what everyone was excited about. Although the blessed enclave was located in the primordial world, it was faintly surpassing the primordial world. Of course, the changes in heaven and earth would not affect them. However, if those powerful existences were to find out that their dojos had most likely been invaded by the Chaos Demon Celestial, would they still be able to laugh? Of course, Feng Zichen was very happy to see the changes in the world. The transformation of the innate environment to the acquired environment was undoubtedly a sign that the human race was about to prosper. How could Feng Zichen? As for the changes of heaven and earth, the heaven and earth of heaven, and the heaven and earth of heaven, and to the heaven to heaven, and to the Khanate to heaven, and to retain Khanate to Khanate. However, the changes in the myriad Tao of heaven and earth were holistic. No matter where one was, as long as one was still in the primordial world, one would be affected. Among them, including the heaven and heaven to up, heaven's heaven and heaven, and by heaven. The change of heaven and earth did not cause much loss to the entire primordial world. However, for cultivators, the environment of heaven and earth was getting worse and worse. It was gradually becoming unsuitable for cultivation. From this, one could see the determination of heaven's heaven. The calamity of world destruction of the primordial world made heaven's heaven afraid of cultivators. It was too dangerous for heaven and earth to have too much power. Therefore, heaven's heaven was determined to weaken the power of cultivators. All the changes that happened in the primordial world were for this purpose. As heaven and earth changed, in the depths of the long river of destiny that no one paid attention to, an inexplicable change happened silently. Almost all the luck of the Khanate races was slowly gathering towards the luck of the human race. Heaven's heaven wanted to prosper the human race. To the primordial world, the human race was too special. They were the only postnatal race in the primordial world, and they were also the weakest race. The human race was not like the Khanate lifeforms who had a long life. They were suffering from hunger, cold, sickness, and death. Could be said that they could die at any time. Because of this, the human race obtained the favor of heaven's heaven. The human race did not have the powerful combat strength of the liches. If this race became the main character of heaven and earth, there would be no need to worry that they would destroy the primordial world when a war broke out. In particular, the human race had a limit to their lifespan. Life and death were the principles of heaven and earth. That was the path of evolution of the world. Like the liches and demons, every clansman had an almost infinite lifespan. Even if heaven's heaven went crazy, it would not let them become the main character of heaven and earth. If everyone could live forever, the origin of heaven and earth would be exhausted sooner or later, leading to the destruction of heaven and earth. Therefore, the only postnatal race, the human race, became the only choice of heaven's heaven. Apart from the human race, Feng Zichen's luck, the number one postnatal person, was also slowly increasing. Every time heaven and earth transformed into the postnatal era, his luck would increase a little. It could be expected that when the primordial world completely entered the postnatal era, Feng Zichen's luck would be extremely dense to an extremely terrifying level. It might be able to directly push his cultivation level to the level of primordial chaos. However, it was a pity that the direction of this luck was gathering in the small primordial world. For the time being, it could not be used by Feng Zichen. Otherwise, wouldn't the relationship between Ziwei Star Master and Feng Zichen be directly exposed? No matter how hard he tried to hide the flow of the primordial world's luck, he could not hide it from Dao ancestor Hongjun. After all, he was the heavenly Dao. Therefore, as long as Feng Zichen did not want to expose the true identity of Ziwei Star Master, he could not touch this luck. He could see it, but he could not touch it. It was really uncomfortable. Not to mention the primordial world's luck. After Tiandao Hongjun used the Dao seal, he looked at the world tree. The chaos spirit root is really extraordinary. After a long while, Tiandao Hongjun said in shock. The origin of the world tree could not be hidden from him. He was shocked because he knew the origin of the world tree. This was the foundation of the prosperity of the primordial world. As the world tree grew, the origin of the primordial world would definitely be strengthened. In the future, there might be a chance to take another step forward. Therefore, the heavenly Dao attached great importance to the world tree. Go! Hongjun of the heavenly Dao used his fingers as a sword, drawing in the origin energy of the world and forming mysterious Dao patterns that enveloped the world tree. Suddenly, the world around the world tree changed drastically. A force of Vipralopa was born from the void and instantly drowned the surrounding space for hundreds of millions of miles. All spells were exhausted, the great Dao wailed, and the laws trembled. All magical powers and spells would lose their effect around the world tree. Even if a golden immortal came here, he would be corroded by this energy of the last days and fall completely into it. It caused the heavens and the earth to move towards decline, and the tribulation of the 5 decay of the heavens and earth to descend to annihilate oneself. This was Tiandao Hongjuan's protection for the world tree. The world tree was not as simple as a spirit root. If it was cut down, it could be directly refined into a connate cardinal treasure. If someone discovered this, it was hard to guarantee that they would not take the risk and commit such a heinous crime. Therefore, Tiandao Hongjun took action in advance to protect the world tree, so as to prevent some people from having thoughts that they should not have. F***CK. Seeing this scene, Feng Zichen really cursed in his heart. Although he knew that Tiandao Hongjun was thinking for the world tree, he was still unhappy. One had to know that the surroundings of the world tree could be said to be the best holy land in the primordial world. The changes in the primordial world could not affect that place at all. Over there, the laws of heaven and earth were extremely clear, and one could fall into enlightenment at any time. The Khanate Chi was extremely rich, almost turning into liquid. Among them, there was even chaos vitality that was of a higher level than Khanate Chi. The dew that dripped from the world tree was also not inferior to the 10 great primordial waters of the primordial world. Occasionally, the origin of heaven and earth would manifest there. It could be said that cultivating around the tree of world would make one's cultivation progress at a tremendous pace. It was impossible to find a better holy land than this in the primordial world. Originally, Feng Zichen intended to place a portion of the human race around the world tree so as to foster some experts for the human race and improve the resources of the human race. However, with Tiandao Hongjuan's actions, all of this was lost. The last day's domain around the world tree was truly too strong, and it could be said to be the most dangerous place in the primordial world. If it wasn't for Feng Zichen being the owner of the world tree and being able to rely on its strength, even he wouldn't dare guarantee that he would be able to walk to the world tree's side alive. This clearly showed how dangerous the last day's domain was. Even if Feng Zichen tried his best to send his clansmen to the world tree's side, they would still be unable to survive in the last day's domain. This plan could be considered to be useless. However, Tiandao Hongjun couldn't be blamed for this. No matter what, he had good intentions. It was just that their standpoints were different. One was for his clansmen, and the other was for the entire primordial world. Hiss! How formidable! When the group of great mediums saw this, they were all shocked speechless. Tiandao Hongjuan's actions had fiercely shocked them once more. As they gazed at the last day's domain, they had the feeling that even if they were careless and fell into it, they would be in danger of perishing. It was truly too terrifying. Yes, actually, these great experts, if they dared to enter the last day's domain, even if the last day's domain didn't belong to them, the Heaven Dao would absolutely not let them off. If anyone really took the last day's domain to be the Heaven Dao's only ability to protect the world tree, then that person would really be an idiot. If a great expert really entered the last day's domain, then the Heaven Dao would immediately sense it, and it would execute a thunderous strike to annihilate that expert. The last day's domain was mainly used to resist cultivators of lower realms of cultivation, and its true trump card was the Heaven Dao. The world tree is the foundation of the heavens and the earth, and it absolutely can't be lost. So all of you absolutely can't allow anyone to approach this tree in the future, and you can't allow anyone to harm it. Do you understand? Tiandao Hongjun withdrew his gaze, and then he turned around and spoke to the 6 saints and the other great experts by his side. We'll remember Master's orders. All of them didn't dare dally and hurriedly replied, yes. When he heard this, Tiandao Hongjun didn't care if they were really sincere or not, and he nodded with satisfaction. After that, he led all of them towards the heaven dimension. Outside the heaven dimension, everyone looked over, and they saw that the enormous 9 heavens had already shattered into numerous enormous fragments. This was even the result of a portion of Nua's natural quintessence flowing towards the heaven dimension when she used her body to mend the heavens, and it repaired a portion of it. Otherwise, who knew what the situation in the heaven dimension would be like? The 9 heavens have shattered, and the heaven dimension should be rebuilt. As he gazed at the miserable state the heaven dimension was in, Tiandao Hongjun spoke in a low voice. After that, he didn't seem to have made any movements, yet the fragments of the heaven dimension that floated in space started to tremble, and they converged towards a certain place under the control of the energy of the heavens and the earth. Rumble! The heaven dimension started to be rebuilt. Earth, fire, water, and wind surged. The energy of the 5 elements became restless. The light of creation flickered, and boundless auras of the Tao appeared. Layer after layer of vast heaven dimensions gradually rose before everyone, and an entire 33 levels of heaven dimensions rose before it stopped. 33 levels of heaven. This was the new heaven dimension. It was refined by Tiandao Hongjun using the 33 largest fragments of the 9 heavens fragments, as well as some important places in the 9 heavens, and the origin of heaven and earth. Unfortunately, the new heaven dimension was refined from the fragments of the 9 heavens. In a short period of time, it couldn't be compared to before. Overall, the new 33 heavens weren't as big as the previous 9 heavens. However, even so, every day in the 33 heavens was even vaster than the upper-class world. With the foundation there, no matter how weak it couldn't be that weak. After refining the 33 heavens, Tiandao Hongjun looked at the remaining fragments of the 9 heavens. However, after thinking for a moment, he didn't continue to make a move. Instead, he allowed it to evolve. In the heaven dimension of the later generations, there were many immortal islands floating in the air. They were formed from these fragments. The heavens and the earth had been set, and Tiandao Hongjuan's mission could be considered completed. It was time for him to leave. I hope that all of you will take this as a warning in the future. You must not cause any more trouble and bring disaster to the primordial world. After glancing at everyone one last time, Tiandao withdrew his will. Immediately, the aura on Dao Ancestor Hongjuan's body changed drastically. A smile appeared on his face, and the cold and heartless aura was replaced by an amiable aura. This was the will of Dao Ancestor Hongjun. He had returned. Taiqing, Yuqing, Shangqing, and Nua pay their respects to Master. Sensing the return of Dao Ancestor Hongjuan's will, his 4 direct disciples hurriedly went forward to pay their respects. Jieyin, Zhuanti, Zenyuanzi, Mingi pay their respects to Master. After that, it was Jieyin, Zhuanti, and the group of mortal guests of the Purple Cloud Palace. Looking at the people who greeted him, Tao Ancestor Hongjun seemed to be in a daze and completely ignored them. The Tao Ancestor didn't say anything, and no one dared to get up. The atmosphere suddenly became solemn. All of you, dispense with the formalities. After a long time, Tao Ancestor Hongjun said. Chapter 526. Thank you, Master Teacher. When everyone heard this, they stood up as if they had been pardoned. You? What a good disciple of the poor way. You really know how to scheme. Tao Ancestor Hongjun said in an inexplicable tone as he looked at Zhuan-Ti and the others. Obviously, these people's scheme against the Magi and demons did not escape Tao Ancestor Hongjun's eyes. Teacher, what do you mean? Taoist Zhuan-Ti's heart trembled as he forced a smile and asked. He had contributed the most to the current situation of the Magi and demons, so he deserved the most credit. The rest of them were at most adding fuel to the fire. It was not a big mistake. Therefore, if Tao Ancestor Hongjun really wanted to settle the score, his problem was the most serious. You all understand what the poor way said. In the future, you will receive your retribution. Tao Ancestor Hongjun glanced at the few of them expressionlessly before saying, Retribution? When everyone heard this, a bad feeling arose in their hearts. However, when they thought about it carefully, they did not find anything wrong. Therefore, they all looked at Tao Ancestor Hongjun, wanting to get an answer from him. Unfortunately, Tao Ancestor Hongjun did not even look at them, let alone help them solve their doubts. To be honest, Tao Ancestor Hongjun did not object to his disciples scheming against the Magi and demons. Could even be said that he supported it. After all, the existence of the Magi and demons was not in the interest of the heavenly Tao. The reason why he was angry was that these disciples were too useless. They had the ability to scheme against the Magi and demons, but they did not have the ability to back them up. As a result, they almost destroyed the entire primordial world. In the end, they had to let others clean up the mess to solve the crisis. How could Tao Ancestor Hongjun not be angry? If it were not for the dignity of the saint, Tao Ancestor Hongjun would have cursed them on the spot. After this time, the Celestial Sect of Wonders could be said to have lost a lot of points in the eyes of the heavenly Tao. Perhaps it would not be long before the Celestial Sect of Wonders was punished. That was truly unbearable. Tao Ancestor Hongjun had spent countless efforts to develop the Celestial Sect of Wonders to its current state. However, after the manipulation of his disciples, the Celestial Sect of Wonders would definitely face a calamity. Sigh, what a sin. The more he thought about it, the angrier he got. Tao Ancestor Hongjun decided to teach his disciples a lesson. With that thought in mind, Tao Ancestor Hongjun extended his hand and grabbed the heads of the three pure ones. Immediately, the five of them felt that with Tao Ancestor Hongjun's grab, a layer of luck was snatched away from their bodies. That's right, the lesson that Tao Ancestor Hongjun taught them was to take away a layer of luck from them. Although this lesson did not hurt their foundation, it was enough for them to remember for a long time. Master Teacher, please calm down. The five of them panicked and hurriedly knelt down. However, Tao Ancestor Hongjun waved his hand and directly released a thick dermic power that lifted the five of them up, causing them to be unable to bow down. This time, the great tribulation of heaven and earth. Mount Buzhou has collapsed. The boundless starry sky and the heavenly realm have also collapsed one after another. The earth has been torn apart. The entire world is in danger of being destroyed. However, thanks to everyone's help, I was able to repeat myself. Everyone has made great contributions to the world. Ignoring the three pure ones and the others, Tao Ancestor Hongjun looked at everyone and said, We don't dare, we don't dare. Although everyone was very happy in their hearts, they all revealed a humble expression on their faces and repeatedly said that they did not dare. Tao Ancestor Hongjun ignored them and continued. During this tribulation, Dijun sacrificed himself to block the sky. Although he was loyal, the dead have already passed away. The heavenly court cannot be without a master for a day. After laying the groundwork for a long time, Tao Ancestor Hongjun finally revealed his true purpose and established the heavenly emperor again. When everyone heard this, they were all tempted. However, after seeing the saint, they all extinguished their thoughts. Although the position of heavenly emperor was good, once one sat on it, they would be targeted by the saints. Just thinking about it made one shiver. Dijun was an example. He was so strong, but he was still schemed to death by the saints. Everyone asked themselves, their strength was not even comparable to Dijun's, so they would not be able to defeat the saints. Everyone did not dare to accept it, but Feng Zichen dared. Hence, he stared at Dao ancestor Hongjun with bright eyes. He almost stood up and said, "I'll do it." Unfortunately, Dao ancestor Hongjun acted as if he could not see him and automatically blocked his gaze. What do you think? Seeing that everyone was silent, Dao ancestor Hongjun looked at the 6 saints with a questioning gaze. Reporting to Master, "I have a..." Nua's heart skipped a beat. She was about to recommend Feng Zichen, but just as she spoke, the Grand Pure One interrupted her. "Master, the position of Heavenly Emperor is very important. It concerns all living beings in the world. How can it be decided so easily? In my opinion, it's better for us to find a time and carefully choose the most suitable candidate." The Grand Pure One's words were really for the sake of all living beings in the world. Perhaps he had some selfish motives, but it was definitely not much. That was because the position of Heavenly Emperor had nothing to do with him. He only had one disciple under his name. It was where his inheritance was. He could not let him go to the Heavenly Emperor. What the Grand Pure One said makes sense. When this matter is over, go to the Purple Cloud Palace to discuss it. At that time, just hand the candidate over to me. Nodding, Dao ancestor Hongjun's figure disappeared from the spot and returned to the Purple Cloud Palace. After Dao ancestor Hongjun left, everyone immediately looked at a certain void. There were 2 Khanate cardinal treasures facing each other. The Chaos Bell and the Primordial World Map. After the world was reset, the 2 of them each occupied a void and confronted each other. Khanate cardinal treasures. Who would not be tempted? Previously, with Dao ancestor Hongjun around, no one dared to snatch it. However, now that the Dao ancestor had left, how could they suppress the greed in their hearts? Who else could be the first to attack other than Taoist Juanti? He rolled his eyes and raised the wonderful 7 treasures tree, brushing it towards the 2 Khanate cardinal treasures. He was greedy enough. The moment he attacked, he wanted to take the 2 Khanate cardinal treasures. There was not a single Khanate cardinal treasure in the Western sect. If he could take away the 2 Khanate cardinal treasures, it would definitely increase the luck of the Western sect. Perhaps the Western sect would prosper because of this. Fellow Taoist Juanti, you're from the Western sect. Why are you coveting my Eastern cardinal treasures? The Grandmaster of Heaven raised the Qingping sword and blocked the wonderful 7 treasures tree. The Grandmaster of Heaven was also very covetous of the Chaos Bell. Although he had the Khanate cardinal treasures, the 4 immortal vanquishing swords, their killing intent was too strong to suppress luck. If he could obtain the Chaos Bell, he could make up for the shortcoming of Jieskul. Moreover, Pangu's axe had transformed into a total of 3 heaven-splitting treasures. 2 of them were in the hands of his eldest brother and second brother. The 3rd heaven-splitting treasure, the Chaos Bell, should fall into his hands to complete the friendship of the 3 pure ones. Eastern cardinal treasure? You're talking as if the 4 immortal vanquishing swords in your hands are not Western cardinal treasures. Hearing the Grandmaster of Heaven's words, Taoist Juanti laughed in anger. The 4 immortal vanquishing swords were clearly Khanate cardinal treasures nurtured by Mount Meru. They were genuine Western treasures. Now that the Grandmaster of Heaven was holding it in his hand, he said that there was a difference between the items. He was really shameless. So, only the people of the East can take the treasures of the West, but the people of the West are not allowed to take the treasures of the East. Fellow Taoist Juanti, the 4 immortal vanquishing swords were given to you by Master. If you have any dissatisfaction, feel free to go to the Purple Cloud Palace and tell Master. The Grandmaster of Heaven was not angry. He encouraged Taoist Zhuan-Ti to go to the Purple Cloud Palace to complain. Taoist Zhuan-Ti was so angry that he could not speak. If he had the ability to seek justice from the Tao ancestor, he would not have to snatch the treasures from everyone here. Fellow Taoist Zhuan-Ti, you should return to the West. At that moment, the Grand Pure One and the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning walked forward at the same time and stood together with the Grand Master of Heaven. They threatened Taoist Zhuan-Ti together. At that moment, the God-confirmant tribulation had yet to erupt. The relationship between the three Pure Ones had yet to be broken. It could be said that they were so close that they were wearing the same pants. Now that the Grand Master of Heaven wanted to snatch the Chaos Bell, they would naturally help. You're going too far. Saint Jiayin took a step forward and stood together with Taoist Zhuan-Ti, facing the three Pure Ones. Nuwa also walked forward and pointed at the Chaos Bell. Since everyone is interested in the Chaos Bell, let's see what happens. As he spoke, the Grand Pure One activated the Taiji painting. The Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning activated the Pangu banner. The Grand Master of Heaven activated the Immortal Vanquishing Array and swept towards the Chaos Bell. On the other side, Zhuan-Ti, Nuwa, and the other two also attacked. The 12th grade Merit Golden Lotus, the Green Treasure Lotus Flag, and the Cosmic Cauldron flew out almost at the same time. However, their goal was not the Chaos Bell, but the Primordial World Geomancy map. Clearly, they did not think that they had the ability to snatch the Chaos Bell under the combined forces of the three Pure Ones. Clang! Sensing the danger, the Chaos Bell resisted. Terrifying bell waves spread and suppressed everything. However, the Primordial World Geomancy map was not as powerful as the Chaos Bell. Even if it unleashed its full strength, it gradually could not defeat the combined suppression of the three saints. Fellow Taoists, you've gone too far. Seeing that the Primordial World Geomancy map was about to be grabbed by the saint, Hutu's cold voice suddenly came from the Netherworld realm. Then, the Primordial World Geomancy map suddenly erupted and shook away the three spirit treasures in one fell swoop. It tore open the void and went to the Netherworld realm. The Magi still had Hutu. How could they let the treasure fall into the hands of outsiders? However, when the three saints saw the Primordial World Geomancy map leave, they did not chase after it. Instead, they went to snatch the Chaos Bell with the three Pure Ones. Fight! Fight! On the side, while the saints were fighting for the Khanate Cardinal treasure, Feng Zichen was not idle. He quietly came to the place where the Magi had fallen. He formed a seal with his hands and summoned 10 flags from the void. It was the 12 Heavenly Divine Banner. It was the natal spiritual treasure that Feng Zichen had given to the 12 Magi. After being refined by the 12 Magi, the 12 Heavenly Divine Banner, which was previously a Khanate Dharma treasure, was now a middle-grade Khanate spirit treasure. What a treasure! Whether the Magi can return as soon as possible depends on you. After putting away the 12 Heavenly Divine Banner, Feng Zichen thought to himself, as the natal spiritual treasure of the 12 Magi, besides being powerful, they could also help the 12 Magi gather their true spirits and speed up their return. This was also the reason why Feng Zichen had given the 12 Heavenly Divine Banner to the 12 Magi. Knowing that the Magi would fall in the battle between the Magi and the demon, how could Feng Zichen not make preparations? This was his staunchest ally, and he could not allow him to fall so easily. While Feng Zichen was collecting the Heavenly Divine Banner, the other great mediums also started to move. The 6 saints were fighting for the Chaos Bell. They did not have the strength to fight for it, so they set their sights on the treasure vault of the Heavenly Court. There were hundreds of millions of years of accumulation of the demon clan. There must be many treasures there. Feng Zichen did not care about this. The demon clan had many treasures, but there were also many of them. They were about to enter the final battle with the Magi. The demon clan would definitely not leave their treasures in the treasure vault to collect dust. They would definitely use as much as they could. According to this calculation, no matter how rich the demon clan's treasure vault was, it could not withstand such consumption. Now, there weren't many treasures left. In terms of the truly precious treasures of the demon clan, it was Di Jun and Tai Yi's treasure vault. There were definitely many good things in it. If he wanted to find something, he would look for them. It was useless to look for the demon clan's treasure vault. As for Dijun and Tai Yi's treasure vault, although Feng Zichen did not know their exact location, he was sure that it must be on the Sun Star. Therefore, Feng Zichen was not in a hurry at all. The Sun Star was already in his bag. In the future, he would have plenty of time to look for Tai Yi and Dijun's treasure vault. Time passed slowly. The Chaos Bell had also produced a result. It was Zhuan Ti and Zhuan Ti. When they saw that there was no hope of obtaining the Chaos Bell, they secretly found an opportunity to throw the Chaos Bell into the void. At this point, the Chaos Bell had completely disappeared. Even the saint. He could not find any traces of him. The three pure ones were about to explode from anger. They were about to obtain the Chaos Bell, but someone had interfered, causing them to miss out on the treasure. This kind of situation where a cooked duck flew away was really unbearable. However, at this point, there was no other way. They could only grit their teeth and swallow this loss. When they found an opportunity in the future, they would give the two of them from the Western sect retribution. Everyone, it's time to get down to business. After a moment of silence, the Grand Pure One said, "This was business." Naturally, it referred to tampering with the past. Recently, they had completely lost their face. They had almost become the joke of the primordial world. If they did not erase everything that had happened previously, how could they have the face to preach the primordial world? That's how it should be. The few of them nodded and used their mystical abilities to draw the river of spacetime. As expected, without Mount Buzhou, the river of spacetime that had previously rejected them was easily summoned by them. "Let's go in." When they saw this, they were even more overjoyed. They hurriedly flashed into the river of spacetime. Whoosh! The river of spacetime was vast. There was no end in sight as it flowed forward endlessly. They were not unfamiliar with the river of spacetime. After all, they had been there several times. When they became saints, the first thing they had to do was to transcend the river of spacetime. Without Mount Buzhou, the river of spacetime is indeed not the same as before. This is what a saint should be able to do. Standing in the sky above the river of spacetime and looking down at the changes of time, everyone said excitedly. Chapter 527. If it was before, when Mount Buzhou was still around, the saints wouldn't even be able to enter the river of spacetime, let alone look down at it. They would have been suppressed by Mount Buzhou long ago. There's no time to lose. Let's hurry up and act. After a while, everyone said excitedly, "Altering spacetime, what a desirable ability." Speaking of which, this was the first time they had entered the river of spacetime and tried to change the past since they started cultivating. In the past, although controlling spacetime was Dalio Jinxian's basic ability, due to the suppression of Mount Buzhou, this ability was completely useless. Until today, when Mount Buzhou collapsed, they had the chance to step into the river of spacetime and display Dalio Jinxian's strongest ability. Thinking about it, it was really exciting. "Let's go." The few of them nodded and followed the river of spacetime upstream, heading from the present to the past. However, the moment they moved, the entire river of spacetime began to tremble violently, erupting with supreme power, setting off huge waves. Wave after wave slammed towards the five of them. This was the backlash of the river of spacetime. Reversing spacetime could be said to be an enemy of all living beings in the world. How could it be done so easily? They would definitely have to pay a huge price. In fact, they might even die. It's just a small matter. The five of them smiled lightly. The power of primordial chaos surged on their bodies and spread to the surroundings. They easily suppressed the huge waves that surged over. They didn't even use their magic treasures. Was the backlash of the river of spacetime strong? Yes. Actually, it wasn't strong. Dalio Jinxian could easily suppress it. Otherwise, there wouldn't be the saying that Dalio Jinxian could reverse spacetime. Since Dalio Jinxian could do it easily, then the stronger primordial chaos Dalio Jinxian could do it easily too. "Let's go." As they chatted, the five saints suppressed the backlash of the river of spacetime and were about to continue walking towards the past. However, they suppressed the backlash from the river of spacetime, but the backlash from the world also followed and pounced on them. Boom! 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 The river of time and space trembled, and the power of time surged. Terrifying figures came over on the waves, facing the 5 saints from afar. This was Daluo-Jinxian. All the Daluo-Jinxian in the untainted land. Every Daluo-Jinxian occupied a timeline. The aura they emitted was like a nail firmly nailed into the long river of time and space, fixing the past. Therefore, in order to reverse time and space, the first thing to do was to suppress all the traces left behind by the Daluo-Jinxian in the primordial world in the river of time and space. Due to the characteristics of the Daluo-Jinxian, every additional Daluo-Jinxian in the world would increase the difficulty of reversing time and space. Come to think of it, when the first Daluo-Jinxian was born, he was simply an invincible existence in the long river of time and space. If it wasn't for Mount Buzhou, he could do whatever he wanted. It was not impossible for all the living beings in the primordial world to be unable to prove themselves as Daluo-Jinxian. His authority was even greater than that of the saints. It was precisely because of this that Pangu left Mount Buzhou behind to prevent future experts from obstructing others from attaining the Tao in the long river of time and space. The trouble of the saints had arrived. Think about it, since the beginning of the primordial world, how many Daluo-Jinxian had been born? There were at least tens of thousands of them. They might have fallen now, but in the past, they were still alive and still existed in the long river of time and space. Now, the saints wanted to reverse time and space. Under the stimulation of the long river of time and space, all the Daluo-Jinxian that had existed in the history of the primordial world appeared. They charged towards the saints to stop them from reversing time and space. A great battle erupted. Yes, saints, past, the long river of time and space. The change in the long river of time and space was immediately sensed by all the Daluo-Jinxian in the primordial world. That was because at the moment the great battle broke out, a memory that no one had any impression of suddenly appeared in their minds. It was the scene that happened in the long river of time and space. Hiss! Is the long river of time and space so terrifying? Looking into the depths of the void, everyone's expressions revealed some shock. They had thought that after Mount Buzhou collapsed, the past would be at their disposal. However, reality had slapped them hard in the face. That was tens of thousands of Daluo-Jinxian attacked together. They were afraid that they would be reduced to ashes as soon as they went up. For a moment, everyone extinguished the thoughts that they should not have. Although controlling time and space was tempting, no matter how tempting it was not as important as their lives. Tens of thousands of Daluo-Jinxian could scare the great divine abilities of the primordial world, but they could not scare the saints. That was because these Daluo-Jinxian were no match for them. Saints were the strongest combat strength of the primordial world. The Grand Pure One shook the Taiji painting, and the Yin-Yang Qi surged out. In the blink of an eye, it devoured countless figures of Daluo-Jinxian. The Pangu banner destroyed everything. The 4 immortal swords were unparalleled. The green treasure lotus flag enveloped the surroundings, and the wonderful 7 treasures tree wiped out everything. The figures of Daluo-Jinxian were harvested by the saints. Not long after, the entire long river of time and space was cleared. Reversing time and space is really not easy. The heavenly lord of primordial beginning sighed. Killing tens of thousands of projections of Daluo-Jinxian in one go, even with his cultivation level, he could not help but feel a little tired. That's how it should be. If reversing time and space is so simple, every Daluo-Jinxian can come over and change it. Then, the primordial world will be in chaos in the future. The Grand Pure One nodded in satisfaction. Reversing time and space and turning karma into karma was not a good thing for the world. It should be eliminated. Today, if not for the fact that he had no choice, he would not be willing to enter the long river of time and space and tamper with the past. That was contrary to the duty of a saint. Let's go. Only this time. There won't be a next time. In the end, the Grand Pure One reminded everyone before continuing to walk forward. Senior brother, don't worry. There definitely won't be a next time. If the Ziwei Star Lord hadn't gone too far, Why would we have to take the risk to enter the long river of time and space and do something as disgraceful as tampering with the past? Taoist Juan-Ti seemed to have thought of something and said hatefully, "Saints had the responsibility to maintain the order of the primordial world. Such tampering with the past was completely within their range of attack. It could be said that their actions today were at the risk of being punished by the heavenly Tao. Knowingly breaking the law was an additional crime. However, they had no choice but to tamper with the past." Feng Zichen's words could be said to have exposed their ugliest faces in front of all living beings. If they did not do anything, how could they have the face to stand in the primordial world? Therefore, they had to grit their teeth and do it. Rumble. Following the saints' actions, the long river of time and space changed again. A vast and mighty force emerged from the distant past and came crashing down on the five saints. In an instant, the expressions of the five saints completely changed. They were too familiar with this force. It can't be wrong. This is definitely the power of Mount Buzhou. But didn't it collapse? Why would it still appear in the long river of time and space? The saints were terrified to the extreme. The shadow that Mount Buzhou had left on them was too great. To be honest, those who could cultivate to the level of Dalio Jingxian in the primordial world had all suffered at the hands of Mount Buzhou. They had already cultivated to the level of Dalio Jingxian. It would be unreasonable not to go to the long river of time and space to take a look. Then they experienced the power of Mount Buzhou. Don't panic. This is just a mark left behind by Mount Buzhou in the past. This power is far less terrifying than we imagined. Saint Taiching's cultivation was the highest. He quickly reacted and recognized the origin of Mount Buzhou in front of him. Phew! When everyone heard this, they gradually calmed down. That was true. Although Mount Buzhou had collapsed, the Mount Buzhou of the past still existed. Now that they were going against the long river of time and space, they would naturally encounter Mount Buzhou. Mount Buzhou doesn't have the present and the future, only the past. It's equivalent to breaking the realm of primordial chaos. How much strength can it retain? If we join forces, it will definitely not be able to stop us. Saint Jiayin composed himself and said, Mount Buzhou was indeed very powerful. Even saints could not compare to it. However, it was not a cultivator after all. It did not have the characteristics of immortality. If it was destroyed, it would be destroyed. The past and future would be affected. Yes, let's join forces. After getting rid of the fear in their hearts, the fighting spirit of the five of them suddenly rose. They wanted to join forces to break the pressure of Mount Buzhou. In fact, if the five saints joined forces, they could really sweep through the entire primordial world. With a decision in their hearts, everyone moved forward again. Boom! 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 An inexplicable rhythm came from the distant past. A vast power descended, and the long river of time and space even showed signs of stagnation. A towering divine mountain came from the past, pressing down on the present. Mount Buzhou that suppressed the ancient times and supported the world. Kill. Without any hesitation, the five saints directly used their strongest technique and attacked Mount Buzhou. At this moment, the long river of time and space completely stagnated. The world also lost its color. Terrifying fluctuations appeared in the past and future, alarming countless experts. After a while, the long river of time and space returned to normal. The five saints were still standing in their original positions, but Mount Buzhou was nowhere to be seen. Obviously, the saints had won this battle. Haha! The poor Wei won. After defeating Mount Buzhou, the five of them laughed out loud on the spot. They felt extremely carefree, and even their realms had improved slightly. They had broken the shadow that had shrouded their hearts for many years. Naturally, they would obtain a lot of benefits. This was called the sublimation of their mental state. Unfortunately, their happiness did not last long before it was shrouded by an even bigger shadow. After Mount Buzhou was destroyed, the long river of time and space completely returned to calm. There were no more waves. The past also appeared in front of the five saints one by one. Then they saw a scene that scared them out of their wits. It was a figure that was enough to fill their hearts. It was so majestic that it was unimaginable. Without the obstruction of Mount Bujo, it was possible to see an imposing figure standing at the origin of time, holding an axe in his hand. It was Pangu. Although he was dead now, he was still there in the past. When the five saints joined forces and wiped out everything in the long river of time and space, what greeted them was not the joy of tampering with time and space, but the fear of facing Pangu directly. Father, 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 God. Even someone as powerful as the Grand Pure One was trembling at this moment. Under Pangu's axe, he really felt the fear of death. That was death, not sleep. It was true death. All traces of existence would completely disappear, as if they did not exist. He was afraid. He was really afraid. What primordial chaos Daluo Jinxian, immortal and indestructible. It was all fake. It was all a lie. That was because they had not met Pangu. Pangu used facts to tell him that as long as he was strong enough, he could even kill primordial chaos. If the strongest Grand Pure One was like this, the others would be even worse. The Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning and the Grandmaster of Heaven were so scared that their faces turned pale, and their bodies could not help but tremble. As for Xuanti, he had long collapsed to the ground. It was not that their mental states were inferior to the three Pure Ones, but the pressure they were under was greater than the three Pure Ones. Pangu, who was the source of time and space, could be said to be at his peak state. His strength was second only to the Great Tao. Just the pressure emitted from his body was enough to make primordial chaos tremble. As the three Pure Ones were formed by Pangu's primordial spirit, they came from the same source as Pangu. Their fear only came from their hearts. Pangu's pressure could not hurt them. However, Xuanti and Xuanti were different. Their relationship with Pangu was not as close as that of the three Pure Ones. Therefore, they were in a tragedy. If they faced Pangu directly, they would have to bear all his pressure. Therefore, that was why they were crushed to the ground. Leave quickly. They bowed respectfully to Pangu. Regardless of whether he saw it or not, the three Pure Ones hurriedly left the river of time and space. As for Xuanti, under such circumstances, it was already good enough that he could take care of himself. How could he have the time to take care of others? Moreover, they were two people who did not have a good relationship with them. There was no need to care about them. Seeing that the three Pure Ones did not even look at them and left directly, Xuanti and Xuanti were so angry that they could not speak. They wanted to curse, but in front of Pangu, no matter how much courage they had, they did not dare to say anything indecent. Let's go. After secretly glancing at Pangu and seeing that he had no intention of pursuing the matter, Xuanti hurriedly left the river of time and space. In the future, they would probably not think of reversing time and space even if they were beaten to death. Who would have thought that Pangu would exist at the source of time and space? This was much more intimidating than Mount Bujo. That was not right. They should have thought of it long ago. Pangu must exist at the source of time and space. The beginning of Pangu's creation of the sky was the beginning of the primordial world and the source of the river of time and space. If he was not there, where could he be? Thinking about it, it was the existence of Mount Bujo that made everyone ignore this point. After all, with Mount Bujo suppressing the river of time and space, who would have thought that there was an even more terrifying existence behind it? Perhaps the existence of Mount Bujo was not only suppressing the river of time and space, but also protecting them. One had to know that without Mount Bujo, after they entered the river of time and space, they would have to face Pangu. If they angered Mount Bujo, they would at most be suppressed for a period of time. If they angered Pangu, they might be directly given an axe. The sharpness of Pangu's axe. Just thinking about it made them despair. Chapter 528. In the entire primordial world, no one would be able to stop it. That was the true death of those who touched it. The source of spacetime, perhaps it was because the sky was being split open, or perhaps it was because he was dealing with the Chaos Fiend God, or perhaps the five saints were too weak in front of him. They were like ants and were not worthy of his attention. In short, Pangu acted as if he did not notice the five saints and allowed them to leave the river of spacetime. In the outside world, the 5 saints hurriedly rushed out of the river of spacetime. They looked slightly disheveled, which surprised everyone who saw this scene. What exactly happened in the river of spacetime to make the saints so disheveled? After all, that was 5 saints working together. Their strength was enough to sweep through the primordial world. But even so, they still suffered a great loss in the river of spacetime. From this, it could be seen how terrifying the river of spacetime was. However, logically speaking, without the suppression of Mount Bujo, even if the river of spacetime was dangerous, it should not be difficult for the saints. Could it be that there was an existence in the river of spacetime that was more dangerous than Mount Bujo? For a moment, everyone was curious about the river of spacetime. If not for the fact that the time was not right, they would have gone in to investigate. However, the saints' next action completely destroyed their thoughts. The river of spacetime is the foundation of the primordial world. Cannot be lost. Therefore, Poor Wei and the others have decided to join forces to seal it to prevent anyone from shaking the foundation of the primordial world. Looking at everyone, the Grand Pure One said in a deep voice, he was saving people. If the river of spacetime was not sealed, with the personalities of these great divine abilities, they would definitely be unable to suppress their curiosity and secretly go to spy. It was fine if 1 or 2 went, but if too many people went, it would inevitably annoy Pangu. They were like a group of insects that swayed in front of you from time to time. It was inevitable that they would cause you to be upset. At that time, Pangu would chop down with his axe. Who knew what would happen and how much of an impact it would bring? Therefore, it was better to seal the river of spacetime and end it once and for all. Senior brother is right. The Grand Pure One's words were unreasonable, and no one would object. What's more, what he said was very reasonable, so no one would object. Even Nuwa, who seemed to have nothing to do, walked forward and stood with the Grand Pure One and the others. They wanted to work together to seal the river of spacetime. Sealing the river of spacetime was to maintain the order of the primordial world. The saints were duty-bound to maintain the order of the primordial world. Attack! As soon as they finished speaking, the 6 sages moved in unison. They drew the power of the heavenly Tao from the depths of the world, forming a vast heavenly Tao seal that enveloped the river of time and space. This seal had already surpassed the capabilities of a saint and was at the level of the heavenly way. In other words, if one wanted to break the heavenly Tao seal, one had to have the power above primordial chaos. In this way, the river of time and space would be completely stable, and no one would be able to barge in. Well, actually, it wasn't a big deal to barge in. Wasn't he just struck by Pangu's axe? It shouldn't be much. To be honest, the sage had already sealed the river of time and space at all costs. If anyone still wanted to barge into the river of time and space, they would really be courting death. There was no need to stop him. Pangu's axe would make him pay the price. After sealing the river of time and space, the 6 sages did not head to the Purple Cloud Palace. Instead, they stayed where they were. They still had a very important thing to do, and that was to eliminate the memories of the living beings of the primordial world about them. With Pangu around, the gentle method of tampering with the past would not work. Since that was the case, they would be more violent and directly erase everyone's memories of this matter. If the sages joined forces, they could completely do that. However, this way it would seem a little unsightly. However, since things had come to this point, they had no choice but to do it. Sigh. If they had known earlier, they would not have gone to the river of time and space. They would have directly used a thunderous method to erase the memories of all living beings in the world. They had really gone around in a big circle and came back again. The thoughts of the Grand Pure One and the others naturally could not be hidden from Nuwa. However, as a saint, she would definitely help. In fact, regardless of whether they were willing or not, after becoming saints, their relationship was closely linked. In the small direction, there was a lot of friction between them. However, in the general direction, they definitely had to be external. Even if they were unwilling, the heavenly Tao would force them to be willing. Just like now, if the saint lost the hearts of the people, how could he preach on behalf of the heavens? Therefore, from the standpoint of the heavenly Tao, Nuwa had to help no matter what. Let's do it. The 6 sages joined forces, and a supreme power spread out, enveloping the entire primordial world. In the next moment, all the living beings in the primordial world who had not become Daluojingxian silently lost a part of their memories. At the side, Feng Zichen watched all of this quietly. He wanted to go forward and cause trouble, but after thinking about it, he felt that it was meaningless. He might as well find a suitable opportunity in the future to show everything that had happened now to all living beings. Thinking about it, at that time, the saint's expression would definitely be quite interesting. Fellow Taoists, everything here is over. Let's hurry to the Purple Cloud Palace and choose the next celestial emperor. After doing all this, the 6 sages rushed to the school of the Emperor Star without looking back. Forcefully erasing the memories of all living beings in the world in front of everyone like this, even with the saint's face, he could not bear it. It was better to leave as soon as possible. Everyone smiled and hurriedly followed. Even Feng Zichen followed. Although he could not become the celestial emperor, he could go and cause trouble. At the very least, he could make the saint feel uncomfortable. Just as everyone was heading to the Purple Cloud Palace in the northern primordial world, where the Thunder Lake was, Feng Zichen's Gaochen incarnation finally came into being. Clang, clang, clang. A thunder god shook the Hongmeng Daozhong crazily. Wisps of Hongmeng chi fell, suppressing and refining the thunder demon god's true spirit. This thunder demon god had the same plan as the star demon god. He wanted to possess the Gaochen divine fetus and use it as a foundation to nibble away at the primordial world step by step. The Gaochen divine fetus was indeed not his match. If Feng Zichen had not sent the Hongmeng Daozhong over in time, the thunder demon god would have already succeeded. It was because of the Hongmeng Daozhong that the Gaochen divine fetus could barely resist the thunder demon god. Judging from this, the Gaochen divine fetus was no match for the thunder demon god at all. But things always changed unexpectedly. Sensing the invasion of the chaos demon god, the entire Thunder Lake became restless. A connate Dao fruit covered in lightning flew out from the depths of the Thunder Lake and merged with the Gaochen divine fetus. This was the supreme Dao fruit that had been nurtured since the Thunder Lake was born, the connate Thunder Lord Dao fruit. Anyone who consumed it would immediately cultivate to the complete realm of Daluojingxian and attain the connate Thunder Lord Dao fruit. With the help of the connate Thunder Lord, the Gaochen divine fetus that was still nurturing entered the mature stage. With Daluojingxian's complete strength, the Gaochen divine fetus was born. For a moment, the Thunder Lake trembled. Countless bolts of lightning appeared and turned into a purple eye that entered the Gaochen divine fetus's forehead. This was the supreme treasure nurtured by the Tao of lightning, the Eye of Heavenly Tribulation. It was a supreme-grade connate spiritual treasure that contained 45 connate divine seals. It even contained a trace of the heavenly Tao's origin. It was the symbol of heaven and earth's punishment authority. Wielding this treasure was equivalent to wielding a portion of heaven and earth's punishment authority. It was truly one of the best spiritual treasures in the primordial world. But even so, the Gaochen divine fetus should not be much stronger than the thunder demon god. But after the Gaochen divine fetus was born, the Thunder Lake's origin had something to entrust itself to. It surged into the Gaochen divine fetus's body and raised its strength to the limits of a quasi-saint. With this, the Gaochen divine fetus wielded the Hongmeng Daozhong and fought evenly with the thunder demon god. After that, things became a lot simpler. As peace returned to the world, Feng Zichen freed up his hands and directly used the Gaochen star to support the Gaochen incarnation, causing his power to skyrocket and suppress the Luai's demonic god in one fell swoop. This was how the previous scene happened. What kind of treasure is this? It can wield the power of the Hongmeng Daozhong. I can't accept this. Amidst the thunder demon god's unwilling screams, the Hongmeng Daozhong trembled and completely refined him, turning him into a part of its body. One could see that the thunder demon god's mark on the Hongmeng Daozhong's bell had completely materialized. It was as if it had come alive, vivid and lifelike. At the same time, the Hongmeng Daozhong's power increased by several notches. It even had the aura of a connate supreme treasure, but it still did not advance to a connate supreme treasure. The requirements to advance the Hongmeng Daozhong were very strict. If one could not find the Khanate 5 essences, even if its power could continue to increase and even surpass a Khanate supreme treasure, its level would not be able to advance. It could only be said that most precious items had their own special characteristics. Fortunately, Feng Zichen had already found a feasible way to obtain the Khanate 5 essences. Now that he was confined in the boundless starry sky, he could give it a try and see if he could advance the Hongmeng Daozhong to a Khanate supreme treasure. With the birth of the Gaochen, Feng Zichen had another great help. The plan that he had prepared earlier could also be carried out. In the Purple Cloud Palace, Feng Zichen's eyes flickered. Clearly, he was planning something. It would not be long before the Celestial Emperor's candidate was decided. That was Dao ancestor Hongjuan's boy, Hao Tian. In this way, even if the saint did not say anything, he would definitely be dissatisfied. The Dao ancestor was old and shrewd. In order to take care of the saint's emotions, he took advantage of the situation and set up another 4 deities under the Celestial Emperor to help the Celestial Emperor control the primordial world. Yes, to put it bluntly, it was to weaken the Celestial Emperor's power. In this way, the saint would gain benefits, but it would not be good for Hao Tian to become the Celestial Emperor. To Hao Tian, although the Celestial Emperor's power had been weakened, it was precisely because of this that he was qualified to ascend to the limitless position. Otherwise, the complete position of the Celestial Emperor was a treasure that was even more noble than the position of the saint. How could he give it to others so easily? Not to mention Hao Tian, who was just a boy, even Dijun was not qualified. Establishing the 4 deities not only satisfied the saint, but also weakened the Celestial Emperor's power. Apart from the Celestial Emperor, there were 4 more karmic positions of heaven and earth. Could be said to be killing several birds with one stone. Dao ancestor Hongjun could be said to be scheming. Feng Zichen's goal. It was the position of the 4 deities. He had no chance of becoming the Celestial Emperor, so he could only take a step back and take the position of the 4 deities first. This way, it would be in line with his initial plan to develop wretchedly. First, he would occupy the position of the 4 deities and secretly take over the Celestial Emperor. On the surface, he would help the Celestial Emperor dominate the primordial world to attract firepower while he hid behind the scenes to develop wretchedly. When the time was ripe, he would do the matter of abolishing Hao Tian and becoming the Celestial Emperor. Yes, the plan was perfect. He was also well prepared. If nothing unexpected happened, his chances of success were very high. However, the situation in the primordial world changed too quickly, and his own strength increased very quickly. In the blink of an eye, he became one of the top experts in the primordial world. Powerful strength gave birth to even greater ambition. Feng Zichen directly put aside his plan to develop wretchedly. He planned to use his powerful strength to forcefully ascend to the position of the Celestial Emperor. However, reality was often more exciting than novels. Feng Zichen never expected that he would be kicked out of the list of candidates for the Celestial Emperor by the Heavenly Tao because he was too powerful. He was too powerful. He was so powerful that even the Heavenly Tao was afraid of him. He was unwilling to let him, the Ziwei Star Master, who was most qualified to become the Celestial Emperor, become the Celestial Emperor. Therefore, the Heavenly Tao deliberately schemed against him and destroyed his hope of becoming the Celestial Emperor. Fortunately, Feng Zichen's wretched development plan was still there. Since he could not force it, he would continue to carry out this plan and try his best to occupy the position of the 4 royals. As for why it was the 4 royals and not the 6 royals, it was because the 6 royals were deliberately set up by the 3 pure ones to take revenge on Hao Tian after the God Investiture tribulation. There was no Celestial Emperor among the 4 royals. In terms of status, they were lower than the Celestial Emperor. They assisted the Celestial Emperor in commanding the primordial world, not sharing the world with the Celestial Emperor. However, the 6 royals were different. Among them, the Celestial Emperor was included. He represented the power of the Celestial Emperor and further weakened. He fell from half a level higher to an existence of the same level. East, west, south, top, bottom, 6 great emperors symbolized the 6 directions. As for the 6 directions, There was no distinction between high and low. From the establishment of the 6 royals, it could be seen that the 3 pure ones were indeed the direct disciples of Tao ancestor Hongjun. This method was simply inherited in the same vein. A good celestial emperor's position was divided into 6 parts by this pair of master and disciple. In the future, Hao Tian called himself the Jade Emperor because he knew that he was no longer qualified to call himself the Celestial Emperor. He directly changed his title to avoid being laughed at. However, Feng Zichen was still very happy to see this. If he were the Celestial Emperor, of course, he would not be happy. However, the problem was that he was not the Celestial Emperor. Different standpoints naturally led to different perspectives on the problem. The more the Celestial Emperor's power was reduced, the more benefits he would receive. He would definitely be happy to see this happen. If the Celestial Emperor's power was not reduced, where would the position of the 4 royals come from? Where would the position of the 6 royals come from? How would his plan be carried out? Therefore, the Celestial Emperor's power must be reduced, especially the more the better. Feng Zichen was now thinking about how to obtain the position of Emperor Tianhuang for the North Star. With the identity of Ziwei Star Master, the position of Emperor Tianhuang had to be given to him no matter what. Even if he died now, it would still be the same. Therefore, there was no need to worry about the position of Emperor Tianhuang. However, the position of Emperor Tianhuang was a bit troublesome. He needed to plan carefully. Chapter 529. If one wanted to become one of the 4 heavenly emperors, one had to be extremely noble, just like Feng Zichen. Or one had enough merit that the heavenly Tao had no choice but to let him be, just like Hutu. Or, like the old man of the South Pole, he had a strong background with a saint supporting him. What about the North Star? In terms of status, he was not as noble as the North Star Lord. In terms of merit, he did not have as much as Hutu. In terms of background, he was also not as good as the old man of the South Pole. The only thing that could be compared to him was his background. The top Khanate godfiend that was born in the Thunder Lake was the Khanate Lightning Lord. Such a background was not considered low. He was completely qualified to become the Heavenly Emperor. However, there were many qualified people in the primordial world. The North Star had no strength, no merit, and no background. How could he defeat his competitors and ascend to the limitless position of the Heavenly Emperor? One must know that even a saint would want to help his disciple obtain the position of one of the 4 deities and use all his merit and virtue. Now, Feng Zichen wanted to obtain the position of Heavenly Emperor for the North Star. That was equivalent to snatching food from the saint's mouth. That was not a simple matter. Fortunately, Feng Zichen already had a complete plan for how to make the North Star become the Heavenly Emperor. Especially the appearance of the Eye of Heavenly Tribulation. He was full of confidence. It did not matter if he did not have a background. He would just follow the heavens and do something with great merit. He would then ascend to the throne with supreme merit. Have you all come to a conclusion? In the Purple Cloud Palace, Tao ancestor Hongjun suddenly appeared and asked everyone. Yes. For a moment, everyone fell silent. How could they have come to a conclusion? Apart from the Grand Pure One, every saint had their own plans. They all wanted the future Heavenly Emperor to come from their sect so that they could gain the upper hand. Therefore, they crazily recommended their disciples, praising them as if they were the only ones in the world. No one would give in to the other. As such, after arguing for a long time, they still did not come to a conclusion. Master, I have a disciple under me, Guang Chengzi. He has outstanding talent and profound cultivation. He has the bearing of a heavenly emperor. I would like to recommend him as the Heavenly Emperor. After a while, the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginnings spoke first. Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginnings' words could be said to be like a stone that stirred up 10,000 ripples. After he finished speaking, the other saints were afraid that Tao ancestor Hongjun would directly nod in agreement, so they also spoke one after another. Senior brother, junior brother thinks that this is inappropriate. Guang Chengzi's poor way has also seen him. His talent is indeed excellent, but his strength is a little weak, and even Daluo Jinxian has not succeeded. If he were to become the Celestial Emperor, without the strength to suppress the heavens and earth, how would he be able to convince the masses? If the masses were to revolt and Master Guangxing was unable to suppress them, wouldn't he end up in a sorry state? At that time, how can the heavenly courts have the face to rule the primordial world? Taoist Kundi smiled and retorted. After all, the celestial sovereign was the nominal ruler of the untainted land. If a cultivator who was not even Daluo Jinxian ascended to the throne, the celestial sovereign would become a joke in the untainted land. Yes, even that heavenly emperor probably wouldn't live for long. Did he really think that no one would dare to kill a sage's disciple? Kundi, you... The heavenly lord of primordial beginning looked at Taoist Kundi with extreme hatred. If not for the fact that this was the Purple Cloud Palace, he would have long raised the Pangu banner and attacked Taoist Kundi. One had to know that he did not have a disciple who had become Daluo Jinxian. In other words, Taoist Kundi's words had completely destroyed his disciple's hope of becoming the Celestial Emperor. Junior brother, don't be anxious. If Guangchengzi is really lucky to become the Celestial Emperor, the poor Wei will give him a 9 revolutions golden pill to help him become Daluo Jinxian. At that moment, the Grand Pure One spoke. To him, it did not matter who the Celestial Emperor was. As long as he was from the 3 Pure Ones, it was fine. Anyway, he only had one disciple. It was impossible for him to give the Celestial Emperor away. It was also at that moment that the Grand Pure One missed the Zichen clan of the human race. If he had agreed to acknowledge him as his master back then, the position of the Celestial Emperor would have been his. Was there anyone more qualified to become the Celestial Emperor than the great Taoist priests of the primordial world? I thank you on behalf of Guangchengzi, senior brother. The heavenly lord of primordial beginning heaved a sigh of relief and thanked the Grand Pure One sincerely. That gift was a little too big. The 9 revolutions golden pill that could allow people to directly become Daluo Jinxian was even more precious than supreme-grade Khanate numinous treasures. Even the Grand Pure One did not have many. Looking at the words of the two of them, it seemed that they had already determined that Guangchengzi was the next Celestial Emperor. Taoist Kundi was inexplicably unhappy and continued to obstruct them. Eldest senior brother. This is very inappropriate. That's the Celestial Emperor. The most honorable position of the primordial world can be obtained infinitely. If Guangchengzi needs to rely on external forces to become Daluo Jinxian, how can he be qualified to become the Celestial Emperor? The new Celestial Emperor might not be as capable as Dijun. At the very least, he can't be too different. In order to destroy the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginnings plan, Taoist Kundi directly used Dijun to talk about it. He felt that Guangchengzi was too inferior to Dijun and was not qualified to become the Celestial Emperor. Everyone nodded when they heard that. Taoist Kundi's words made sense. The Celestial Emperor. He should have some of Dijun's elegance. Otherwise, they would respect a brat as the Celestial Emperor and listen to his orders. If word got out, wouldn't they be laughed at? Even if it was only in name, everyone could not accept it. Therefore, they secretly made a decision in their hearts. No matter who the saint nominated as the Celestial Emperor, as long as it was a 3rd-generation disciple of the Celestial Sect of Wonders and had not reached the realm of a great divine ability, they would all oppose it. If they wanted the Celestial Emperor to be above their heads, at the very least, they had to have the same strength and seniority as them. As for the younger generation, it was better for them to stay where they were. Humph! Everyone's expressions could not be hidden from the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning's eyes. In an instant, he guessed everyone's thoughts. He could not help but snort coldly and did not speak anymore. At this point, he already understood that the battle for the Celestial Emperor this time had nothing to do with his Chan school. Thinking of this, the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning was furious. He looked at Taoist Kundi with a murderous gaze. At the same time, he made a decision in his heart. After leaving the Purple Cloud Palace, he had to give Taoist Kundi retribution on the way. At this moment, Taoist Kundi was immersed in the joy of successfully destroying the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginnings plan. He did not notice that the heavenly Lord of primordial beginning had already planned to ambush him halfway. Perhaps even if he knew, he would not care. Compared to destroying the heavenly Lord of primordial beginning's plan, what was a beating? Master, regarding the celestial emperor, I have a suitable candidate here. Seeing that the heavenly Lord of primordial beginning did not speak, the Grand Master of Heaven thought that the opportunity had come and hurriedly said, after all, they were biological brothers. Seeing that the heavenly Lord of primordial beginning wanted to scheme for the position of the celestial emperor, the Grand Master of Heaven could not step forward to compete with him to prevent any conflicts between the brothers. But now, the heavenly Lord of primordial beginning had been kicked out of the game. It was inevitable that the position of the celestial emperor would fall to someone else. It was just right for the Grand Master of Heaven to make a move. Who? Looking at the Grand Master of Heaven, Tao Ancestor Hong Jun asked with a smile. Old people always favored the young. Tao Ancestor Hong Jun was still a little biased towards the Grand Master of Heaven and Nuwa. For example, the Grand Master of Heaven had the most connate spirit treasures among the saints. Although the treasures on Nuwa were not as good as the three pure ones, she could go to the Purple Cloud Palace to visit the Tao Ancestor at any time. That was the difference. Master also knows this person. It's your grand disciple, the eldest direct disciple under my name, the first disciple of the third generation of the celestial sect of wonders, the 9 heavens immortal venerable Xianqing. The Grand Master of Heaven said proudly. How could he not be proud? Xianqing was the first among the third generation disciples of the celestial sect of wonders to cultivate the Daluo Jingxian, and he was at the perfected realm. Other than that, he had also achieved a series of brilliant achievements. He established the Qi Pill Dao, set the primordial currency, built the teleportation array disk, and then established the Connate Talisman Dao, becoming the ancestor of a Dao. Such a performance was extremely eye-catching even among the second generation of the celestial sect of wonders, let alone the third generation of the celestial sect of wonders. Few people could compare to him. If it were not for the fact that Feng Zichen had appeared in the human race and overshadowed Xianqing's limelight, the title of the number 1 genius of the primordial world would have fallen on Xianqing's head. Xianqing's performance was so eye-catching that the Grand Master of Heaven, as his master, naturally gained a lot of face. For this, there were already people who said that it was hard to say who was the strongest among the 6 saints, but in terms of the ability to teach disciples, the Saint of the Supreme Pure One was the leader. This made the Grand Master of Heaven overjoyed. After the Grand Master of Heaven said Xianqing's name, the eyes of the 2 saints lit up and they nodded secretly. Even Feng Zichen, who was in a daze, hurriedly came back to his senses and looked at Tao Ancestor Hong Jun with anticipation. Why didn't he think of it? His original body could not become the Celestial Emperor, but his incarnation could. If the Grand Master of Heaven really succeeded, then Feng Zichen would make a huge profit. Xianqing? Not bad. Tao Ancestor Hong Jun nodded and praised. Master, I also think that Xianqing has the bearing of a Celestial Emperor. Seeing that Tao Ancestor Hong Jun's tone showed signs of loosening, the Grand Pure One and the Jade Pure One hurriedly said at the same time. They wanted to take this opportunity to settle this matter. However, when Zhuan Ti, who was at the side, saw this, he was a little anxious. To them, anyone could become the Celestial Emperor, but the disciples of the 3 Pure Ones could not. Perhaps, before coming to the Purple Cloud Palace, Zhuan Ti still had some hope that his disciple could become the Celestial Emperor. However, after coming to the Purple Cloud Palace, they completely gave up on this idea. It was because the people of the East had gone too far and completely looked down on the West. When everyone was discussing, every time Zhuan Ti mentioned his disciple, the heavenly Lord of primordial beginning would say, "The West is barren. What kind of talent can they produce?" He would be coldly rebutted. In this regard, whether it was the other saints or the great mediums present, none of them refuted. They all had expressions of agreement. Seeing this scene, how could Zhuan Ti not understand that this battle for the Celestial Emperor had nothing to do with them from the beginning? They had called them over just to be witnesses. They really did not mean to ask for their opinions. Therefore, in the following discussion, Zhuan-Ti and the other began to look down and were indifferent to everything. This did not mean that they had given up. Instead, it meant that they had already made up their minds. No matter who the three pure ones proposed to be the celestial emperor, they would oppose it with all their might. In short, they could not let the three pure ones become the celestial emperor. Zhuan-Ti's thoughts were probably that if he could not get something, he could not let the three pure ones get it. Master, I have something to say. The position of the celestial emperor is extraordinary. Those who can take on this great responsibility need to have a sufficiently noble status, sufficient strength, and sufficient merit. Is Xianqing qualified? Taoist Zhuan-Ti said hurriedly. It was enough to grasp the point of strength. The three pure ones did not have a sage to be. Fellow Taoist Zhuan-Ti, don't worry too much. Since the Poor Wei recommended Xianqing, he must be qualified. The Poor Wei's disciple was formed from the innate clear qi. He is of the same origin as the heaven realm. Is this background enough? Tong Tian was not angry. Instead, he smiled and said to Taoist Zhuan-Ti, being born from the innate clear qi is indeed not bad. What about his strength? Taoist Zhuan-Ti thought for a while. Seeing that he could not bring himself to talk about this, he asked about Xianqing's strength. Strength. Although Xianqing is now in the realm of Daluo Jingxian, he has already reached perfection. He has bloomed 3 flowers, given birth to 5 qis, and understood the thoughts of good and evil. Tong Tian said with a smile. As soon as this was said, everyone was shocked. Everyone knew that Xianqing's strength was strong, but they did not expect that his strength had reached this level. Understanding the thoughts of good and evil meant that Xianqing's cultivation had reached the realm of killing 2 corpses. As long as he found a suitable object to kill 2 corpses, it would not be long before he could kill 2 corpses and cultivate to the late stage of the sage-to-be. And the late stage of the sage-to-be could be called a great medium. Disciple Nephew's strength has really improved. Taoist Zhuan-Ti did not expect that Xianqing's strength had reached such a level. After a while, he came back to his senses and laughed dryly. The last time he saw Xianqing, he had just entered the realm of Daluo. Who would have thought that he would reach such a level in such a short time? It was normal that Taoist Zhuan-Ti did not expect it. A trace of envy appeared in Taoist Zhuan-Ti's heart. How could such a good disciple be met by Tong Tian and not by the Western sect? Even the almighty beings present began to discuss spiritedly after hearing sect leader Tongtian's words. They still knew about Xianqing. Other than his low seniority, he had also met the requirements to become a celestial emperor. Therefore, everyone was a little conflicted, not knowing whether to agree or not. Then merit? Taoist Kundi subconsciously wanted to ask about merit, but he swallowed his words before he could finish his sentence. What kind of joke was this? Would Xianqing lack merit? If he really asked, wouldn't he be ridiculed? Fellow Taoist, do you have any other questions? Tong Tian quickly asked when he saw that Taoist Zhuan-Ti was a little speechless. He was very confident that Xianqing could become a celestial emperor. Chapter 530. Taoist Kundi really had no other choice. He had searched for all the reasons he could find. He really couldn't find any other reason. Could it be that he really wanted Xianqing to become the celestial emperor? Although he was a little unwilling, Taoist Kundi had to admit that among the 3rd-generation disciples of the celestial sect of wonders, there was no one more suitable than him. At this point, it seemed that everything was a foregone conclusion. But at this moment, Saint Jiayin, who had been silent for a long time, suddenly spoke. Teacher, Xianqing still needs to be in charge of the netherworld. He really can't leave. As soon as he said this, the expressions of the 3 pure ones changed drastically. Yes, how could they forget this? Xianqing was the only force of the celestial sect of wonders in the netherworld. If he ran to be the celestial emperor, then the situation that the celestial sect of wonders had created in the netherworld with great difficulty would be all gone. Therefore, Xianqing could not leave the netherworld. Although the position of celestial emperor was important, It was obvious that the celestial sect of Wonder's plan for the netherworld was more important. In this way, Xianqing could not become the celestial emperor. As for sending an incarnation to the netherworld after becoming the celestial emperor, stop joking. The incarnation of the celestial emperor actually ran to the netherworld to be a duke. Wasn't that saying that the heaven realm was inferior to the netherworld? Whose face was this slapping? Sigh. This child, what a pity. At this moment, Dao ancestor Hong Jun sighed and said with slight regret, this was to set the tone for this matter. They could not mess up the celestial sect of Wonder's plan for the netherworld. The Grandmaster of Heaven's smug expression also began to become a little defeated. Just a little more. If it was for other reasons, the Grandmaster of Heaven could still refute it, but there was nothing he could do about this matter. However, in his heart, he secretly hated Saint Jiayin. He planned to ask him for advice on the immortal slaying sword formation after leaving the Purple Cloud Palace, so that he would know that there were some things that could not be said. Even the way Feng Zichen looked at Jiayin had changed. He was hesitating whether he should secretly kill a few of his disciples to teach him an unforgettable lesson. He could not defeat Zhuanti, but Zhuanti's disciples could not defeat him either. If he could not deal with Zhuanti, he could deal with the Western sect. Ever since Zhuanti attacked the human tribe, Feng Zichen felt that he had been enlightened. When dealing with shameless people, you either have to be stronger than them, or you have to be more shameless than them. Feng Zichen could not do it for the time being, but he could do it more shamelessly than them. Feng Zichen said that he could give it a try. After understanding this, Feng Zichen realized that he was wrong. He had set the wrong target. Taking revenge on Zhuanti, it was not necessary to attack them. He could attack the Western sect and their disciples. The Western sect was where Zhuanti's efforts were. Only by destroying that place would the two of them feel pain and despair. Compared to the destruction of the Western sect, the physical injuries caused by Zhuanti were of no use other than embarrassing them. Saints would not die, nor would they be injured. Moreover, what was more satisfying revenge than destroying the enemy's efforts with one's own hands? These were taught to Feng Zichen by Zhuanti. If they had not attacked the human tribe, Feng Zichen would not have understood this penguin. If others did not follow the rules, why should he follow the rules? Since Zhuanti could attack the ordinary people of the human tribe, Feng Zichen could also attack the disciples of the Western sect. The weak followed the rules and the strong made the rules. What a pity! Even everyone secretly felt pity for Xianqing. How could a mere duke of the netherworld be compared to the celestial emperor? Xianqing had suffered a huge loss this time, but how could his personal interests be compared to the interests of the Xian sect as a whole? In the future, Xianqing will have his own benefits. After thinking about it, Dao ancestor Hong Jun also felt that Xianqing had suffered a loss, so he promised. Dao ancestor is wise. Everyone hurriedly flattered. Dao ancestor, since there is no suitable candidate for the saint, what do you think of me? Do I have the qualifications to seek the position of celestial emperor? Suddenly, Feng Zichen stood up and recommended himself to Dao ancestor. Opportunities were fought for by oneself. Regardless of whether he succeeded or not, he had to give it a try. Only then would he not regret it. Otherwise, if he did not even try, how could he dare to say that he had worked hard? Besides, what if he succeeded? What if the heavenly Dao really wanted him to be the celestial emperor? Everything before was just his guess. What if he was thinking too much? Dao ancestor Hong Jun did not say that he could not be the celestial emperor. Therefore, he still had to give it a try. If he succeeded, he would make a huge profit. Even if he failed, he would not lose anything. But if he missed this opportunity because of his cowardice, then it would be a huge loss for him. Moreover, in the world, even if Dijun was reborn, he would not dare to say that he was more qualified than Feng Zichen to be the celestial emperor. Under such circumstances, even if Dao ancestor Hong Jun rejected Feng Zichen's recommendation, he would have to give him a lot of benefits. Otherwise, he would not be able to convince the masses. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. At this moment, everyone in the Purple Cloud Palace looked at Feng Zichen with an extremely complicated gaze. This scene was really too familiar. Countless years ago, there had been two people who had done the same thing in this place. They took the initiative to ask Tao ancestor Hongjun if they could become the Celestial Emperor and rule the primordial world. Those two people were Dijun, Tai. After that, the Tao ancestor nodded. The era that belonged to Dijun, Tai had arrived. It was as if history was repeating itself. A familiar scene appeared in front of everyone again. The difference was that the protagonist of the story had changed. It had changed to a younger and more powerful god. The sad thing was that they were still supporting characters. It was also this scene that reminded everyone. How could the Celestial Emperor be chosen? Could he become a qualified Celestial Emperor? Everyone retracted their gazes from Feng Zichen and looked at Tao ancestor Hongjun. They were waiting for his answer. Was it the same as countless years ago? In terms of birth, the Ziwei Star Lord was born as the Lord of the Stars and ruled the boundless starry sky. He is also of the same origin as the heavenly Tao and has the noblest background. He is the most authentic Pangu. In terms of strength, his realm has even entered the half-step primordial chaos realm. Few people in the primordial world can defeat him. With the help of Zhouxing, he can even fight with a saint for a long time without falling into a disadvantage. He can be said to be the top great divine ability of the primordial world. In terms of merit, he has the merit of saving the world. If it weren't for the Ziwei Star Lord repairing the boundless starry sky, how could the apocalyptic calamity of the primordial world be resolved so easily? According to this, the Ziwei Star Lord's background, strength, and merit can be said to be perfect. He is simply the best candidate for the Celestial Emperor. Even if Dijun comes back to life, he might not be able to compete with him. While Tao ancestor Hongjun was silent, everything about the Ziwei Star Lord was slowly told by everyone. At this moment, everyone suddenly realized that there was no need to fight. Wasn't the most suitable candidate for the Celestial Emperor always here? Ziwei. Speaking of which, you are the most suitable candidate for the Celestial Emperor. It can even be said that you are a natural Celestial Emperor. After a long silence, Tao ancestor Hongjun said to Feng Zichen. This was the truth. But Feng Zichen was not willing to listen, because the meaning in his words was already very obvious. The Tao ancestor did not want him to be the Celestial Emperor. Otherwise, couldn't he just agree directly? Why did he have to talk so much nonsense? Didn't he see that after Tao ancestor Hongjun said this, the three pure ones and the others all heaved a long sigh of relief? If that's the case, why didn't Tao ancestor choose me? Feng Zichen was angry, so he did not prepare anything and asked directly. It's not that I don't want to, but I really can't. Tao ancestor Hongjun was not angry. He understood Feng Zichen's current mood very well. Why? At this point, Feng Zichen really wanted to know what reason Tao ancestor Hongjun could come up with. Because of Zhouxing. In the battle between the liches and demons, Zhouxing was too damaged. Even the heavenly Tao did not have enough strength to repair it. As for you, you can forcefully plunder enough strength from the chaos outside the realm to repair Zhouxing without consuming the origin of heaven and earth. You even have extra strength to repair the broken world. Do you know? How surprised was the heavenly Tao when he saw this scene. Therefore, from then on, he decided to leave you in the boundless starry sky. Because the heavenly Tao needs you to repair Zhouxing. So before Zhouxing is repaired, he does not want you to leave the boundless starry sky. In fact, when you fought with the saint, the heavenly Tao probably schemed against you to keep you in the boundless starry sky. Therefore, you can't leave the boundless starry sky, and being unable to leave the boundless starry sky means that you are not qualified to become the Celestial Emperor. Tao ancestor Hongjun's voice sounded in Feng Zichen's sea of consciousness, explaining all of this to him. Because the answer was too shocking and involved the heavenly Tao's plan, Tao ancestor Hongjun did not announce it. Instead, he used his spiritual will to tell Feng Zichen. What? Feng Zichen was really shocked. He had never thought that the reason why the heavenly Tao did not let him become the Celestial Emperor was because of this. It sounded ridiculous, right? But Feng Zichen believed it. This seemed to be something that the heavenly Tao would do. That was because the heavenly Tao did not have intelligence and only relied on instinct. The distinction between good and evil, right and wrong, were all imposed on the heavenly Tao by later generations. The heavenly Tao itself did not have these. What good and evil, what right and wrong, in front of the heavenly Tao, there were only things that were beneficial to the primordial world and things that were harmful to the primordial world. As long as it was beneficial to the primordial world, regardless of whether it was good or evil, right or wrong, the heavenly Tao would support it. By the same logic, as long as it was harmful to the primordial world, even if it was just the heavenly Tao would oppose it. In the simple thoughts of the heavenly Tao, Feng Zichen could repair Zhouxing, so he was beneficial to the world. Since that was the case, he naturally had to think of a way to keep him in the boundless starry sky. For this, sacrificing some of Feng Zichen's interests was nothing. The heavenly Tao was the most selfless and selfish. For the interests of the world, he could give up everything. Sacrificing Feng Zichen was nothing. The heavenly Tao is fair. Since you want me to repair the boundless starry sky, you will definitely give me some benefits, right? After thinking about it, Feng Zichen already understood that unless he could repair Zhouxing immediately, otherwise, he would not be able to leave the boundless starry sky before Zhouxing was repaired. Therefore, he had no chance of becoming the celestial emperor. Since that was the case, he had to ask for some benefits to make up for his losses. Benefits? The best place in the primordial world and the entire boundless starry sky have been given to you. What other benefits do you want? Tao ancestor Hong Jun said unhappily. That was the boundless starry sky, one of the most important places in the primordial world. It could be said that if one controlled this place, they would have the capital to dominate the primordial world. Di Jun relied on this place to make a fortune to fight against the wizard race. It was not an exaggeration to say that the Lord of the boundless starry sky was half a celestial emperor. The Lord of Ziwei Star could have such a noble status because he was the Lord of the boundless starry sky. How about the position of the Deputy Lord of the Heavens and Earth? It's second only to the Celestial Emperor, and also represents the next Celestial Emperor. Tao ancestor Hong Jun scolded with a smile, showing the sincerity of the heavenly Tao. That's it? Feng Zichen was very disdainful of this. How could these things be compared with the position of the Celestial Emperor? Forget it. The poor Wei will give you a copy of her cultivation experience over the years. After that, I will give you a fragment of the creation jade disc. What do you think? From Feng Zichen's expression, one could see his dissatisfaction. Tao ancestor Hong Jun was a little helpless about this and could only say again. Cultivation experience? Creation jade disc fragment. Tao ancestor, you're really generous. I'll be polite then. Hearing this, Feng Zichen's eyes lit up and he hurriedly nodded in agreement. Regardless of whether it was the cultivation experience of the Tao ancestor or the fragment of the creation jade disc, they were all first-class treasures. The former could let Feng Zichen see the path ahead, and the latter was even more impressive. It was a fragment of the heavenly Tao treasure that contained all the principles of the primordial world. It could allow one to get closer to the Tao. Tao ancestor Hong Jun was able to integrate the Tao because of this item. From this, one could see how extraordinary the creation jade disc was. Take it. With a wave of his hand, Tao ancestor Hong Jun gave his cultivation experience and the creation jade disc to Feng Zichen. The cultivation experience of the Tao ancestor was recorded in a jade book. The jade book was pure white and flawless, filled with Khanate Tao runes. It was at least a superior grade Khanate spirit treasure. At a glance, one could tell that it was produced by the Tao ancestor. The fragment of the good fortune jade disc was a small piece of purple jade. It was covered with complicated patterns, which made people feel dizzy just by looking at it. Feng Zichen did not dare to look at it anymore. He put away the two treasures and left. He knew the principle of going too far was as bad as falling short. The Tao ancestor had even given out the fragment of the creation jade disc. It was obvious that he had reached his limit. If he wanted more, he would not be able to get anything good. Instead, he would offend people. It was better to take a step back. With this favor, he could not refuse Tao ancestor Hongjun if he needed help in the future. Overall, this deal was still a loss, but it was not too much. Returning to his seat, Feng Zichen thought silently. As for what had happened just now, he did not know what method Tao ancestor Hongjun had used. In short, no one saw anything. They only knew that the Tao ancestor had rejected Feng Zichen. Chapter 531. Master, the position of Celestial Emperor is of great importance. We don't dare to make a decision. It's better for Master to make a decision. Not long after Feng Zichen left, the Grand Pure One stepped forward and said, since the candidate they recommended could not obtain the approval of everyone, they would let Tao ancestor Hongjun decide personally. In this way, who would dare to have any objections? Yes! Hao Yin Yao Qi, the two of you come forward. Hearing that, Tao ancestor Hongjun nodded and called the Hao Yin Yao Qi over. The Hao Yin Yao Qi, who was watching the show at the side, clearly did not expect that there would be something between them. Therefore, after hearing Tao ancestor Hongjun's words, they were clearly stunned. When they came back to their senses, they hurriedly ran forward and bowed to Tao ancestor Hongjun. Disciple Hao Yin Yao Qi greets Master. May I know what instructions Master has for us to come here? Thinking of the content of the conversation just now, the Hao Yin Yao Qi clearly sensed something. Her heart was a little bumpy and she asked excitedly. The poor Wei wants to make the two of you the Celestial Emperor and Empress to rule the primordial world. Are you willing? Tao ancestor Hongjun did not stand on ceremony and said bluntly. Whoosh! As soon as these words were said, the entire place was in an uproar. Who was the Hao Yin Yao Qi? She was just a child beside Tao ancestor Hongjun. How could she become the Celestial Emperor with such a status? How could everyone be convinced? Although the Hao Yin Yao Qi had also listened to the Tao when the Tao ancestor preached and was considered one of the 3,000 guests of the Purple Cloud Palace. However, because of their status, who would take these two seriously? Who would treat them as fellow Taoists? No, they were just child Taoists. How could they be compared to them? Even Zhuanti, who was the least liked back then, looked down on Hao Tian and Yao Qiwan had to know that when the Tao ancestor first preached the Tao, Zhuanti was late. If the Hao Yin Yao Qi had not taken pity on him and reopened the Purple Cloud Palace for the two of them, the two of them would not have been able to get the 3,000 guests of the Purple Cloud Palace, let alone the position of saint. Could be said that Hao Yin and Yao Qi had become Zhuanti. Logically speaking, with this relationship, the relationship between Zhuanti and the Hao Yin Yao Qi should be very good. But that was not the case. There was no relationship between them at all. In the view of Zhuanti, Hao Yin Jade Lake was a Taoist child. It was her duty to open the door for them. They did not owe the two of them anything. Wasn't it because he looked down on them that he had such thoughts? If it was some other innate god that opened the door for them, would Zhuanti be like this? Most likely he had already accepted this favor. Zhuanti didn't think that they were late first. Even if the Hao Yin Jade Pool didn't open the door for them, no one could find fault with them. On the contrary, the Hao Yin Jade Pool was taking a huge risk to open the door for the two of them. But even so, they did not receive a word of thanks from Zhuanti. What greeted the two of them was still the same contemptuous attitude. Are you willing? Tao ancestor Hongjun's casual words brought an unimaginable shock to Hao Yin. He was almost stunned by the huge surprise that came out of nowhere. Previously, he was still guessing who would become the supreme ruler of the primordial world. However, in a flash, the flower landed on his head. Surprise! It really caught him off guard. Although he had long known that the Tao ancestor would arrange a good future for him, he didn't expect that the Tao ancestor would directly give him the position of Celestial Emperor. This was more than good. That was the position of Celestial Emperor. There was nothing more precious than this in the primordial world. He wouldn't even exchange it for a primordial treasure. Excited, Hao Yin was about to agree. But just as he was about to open his mouth, he suddenly felt that the surrounding atmosphere had suddenly changed. It became extremely solemn. Terrifying pressure, with an invincible aura, came from behind the Haoyan jade pool, oppressing them until they couldn't speak. At this time, everyone present made a move. The existence that they had looked down on in the past was now going to be above them. How could the proud people tolerate this? Therefore, they made a move. Even in front of Dao ancestor Hongjun, they did not hesitate to make a move. They wanted to use their powerful pressure to force the Haoyan jade pool to reject Dao ancestor Hongjun's proposal. Although Dao ancestor Hongjun had decided to let these two become the celestial emperor and empress, this was not forced. If the Haoyan jade pool took the initiative to refuse, Dao ancestor Hongjun could not force it. As for whether it would offend Dao ancestor Hongjun because of this, everyone was actually not worried. If Dao ancestor Hongjun was really so stingy, he would not have become the Dao ancestor that everyone admired. Pressure. An unprecedented pressure. The pressure brought by everyone's combined strength. It was as if the Kunlun divine mountain was pressing down on him. The Haoyan jade pool was almost out of breath. Haoyan's strength was extraordinary. He could still hold on for a while. However, the jade pool's strength was far inferior to Haoyan's. Under the pressure of everyone, he gradually showed signs of being unable to hold on. His face gradually turned pale, and drops of cold sweat dripped from his forehead. Dao ancestor Hongjun did not say anything about this. If the Haoyan jade pool could not even overcome this little difficulty, then it was better to give up the position of celestial emperor and empress as soon as possible. One must know that after they became the celestial emperor and empress, any of the difficulties that they would have to face would be countless times more difficult than the current predicament. Without powerful strength, even if they were forcefully pushed to the position of celestial emperor and empress, they would not be stable and might even be in danger. There were too many lawless people in the primordial world. What could they not do? What was the big deal about killing a celestial emperor? Countless people died every day in the primordial world. Why couldn't there be a celestial emperor among them? A long, long time ago, the Haoyan jade pool had been by Dao ancestor Hongjun's side. That seemed to be before they became saints. After so many years, even if they had a heart of stone, they would still have feelings for each other. Therefore, there was a huge opportunity now, and Dao ancestor Hongjun was willing to help them. But the opportunity was given to them. Whether they could seize it or not depended on their own choice. For a moment, Dao ancestor Hongjun looked at Haoyan with a deeper gaze, like a bottomless abyss. He was looking forward to Haoyan's choice. It shouldn't be like this. At this moment, Feng Zichen was staring at the Haoyan jade pool with a very puzzled gaze. Among the people who threatened the Haoyan jade pool, he was naturally included. However, different from everyone else's goal, Feng Zichen's original intention was not to force the two of them to bow their heads, but to test Haoyan's strength. No matter how bad Haoyan's performance was in the future, he was still the celestial emperor. And how could someone who could become the celestial emperor not have some skills? Haoyan's strength must be unimaginably strong. Otherwise, he would not be able to sit firmly in the position of celestial emperor. This could be seen from the attitude of the three pure ones in the future. One had to know that the cause of the God-conferment tribulation originated from Haoyan. It was precisely because he complained to Dao ancestor Hongjun that the God-conferment tribulation broke out, causing the Chan school and Jie school to suffer heavy losses. After suffering such a huge loss, wouldn't the three pure ones hate Haoyan to death? But even so, they only thought of ways to reduce Haoyan's power, instead of finding an opportunity to kill Haoyan. From this, it could be seen that Haoyan must have something that the three pure ones were afraid of, so they did not dare to act rashly. The three purities were famous for their boldness. They even dared to destroy the primordial world, so a mere celestial emperor naturally could not scare them. However, they did not dare to attack Haoyan. The reason behind this was truly frightening to think about. Therefore, Feng Zichen had always felt that Haoyan's strength was very, very strong. Even if he was not as good as Di Jun, he was not far away. Haoyan, the vast heaven. Haoyan dared to use the name heaven. Presumably, his strength was also very extraordinary. Otherwise, he would not be able to suppress this name. In the primordial world, the name of a god was not randomly given. It could, to a certain extent, reflect a person's future achievements. Moreover, if one's strength was not worthy of the name, they would be counterattacked by luck and fall into a calamity, leading to a fatal disaster. It was precisely because of the above considerations that Feng Zichen took the opportunity of everyone threatening the Haoyin Jade Pool to test Haoyin's strength. But the result was beyond his expectations. Haoyin's strength was far from as strong as he had imagined. Under the pressure of everyone, he actually showed signs of being unable to hold on. This was very unreasonable. Could it be that Haoyin had hidden his cultivation? Thinking of this, Feng Zichen exerted even more pressure on Haoyin. He wanted to see if Haoyin was really as weak as he appeared to be now. If Haoyin was as Feng Zichen had guessed and had hidden his strength, then this pressure would not be able to hurt him at all. If Feng Zichen had guessed wrongly, Haoyin's strength was not as strong as he had imagined. Although this pressure was not enough to kill Haoyin, it was enough to seriously injure him. Then this was what he had asked for. Wanting to ascend to the position of Celestial Emperor with his insignificant strength was an act of courting death. In fact, in Feng Zichen's heart, he was more inclined to believe that Haoyin's strength was low. In this way, he could take advantage of the opportunity to cripple Haoyin. Don't blame Feng Zichen for being black-hearted. Who asked the two of them to have enmity between them? No matter who became the Celestial Emperor, it was considered a great enmity with Feng Zichen. If all the candidates for the Celestial Emperor were killed, then his chance would come. Faintly, Feng Zichen had an unrealistic idea in his heart. Yes or no? At this time, Haoyin's heart was really tangled to the extreme. That was the highest karmic position in the untainted land, and it was just placed in front of him. As long as he nodded, he could ascend to the sky in one step and become the supreme Celestial Emperor respected by all the heavens. It would be a lie to say that he was not tempted. Who did not envy Dijun's prestige in the past? But every time Haoyin wanted to agree, the terrifying gazes that came from behind him brought him great pressure, making him unable to speak. The position of the Celestial Emperor was tempting, but the hostility from many great magicians was also terrifying. Becoming the Celestial Emperor was certainly a step into the sky, but the price was to offend all the great magicians in the untainted land. In comparison, the position of the Celestial Emperor seemed a little light. After all, he had offended so many great magicians. Even if he really became the Celestial Emperor, it would be difficult for him to be stable. So, it was better to refuse. Under the great pressure, a thought of giving up gradually appeared in Haoyin's heart. As time passed, it became bigger and bigger, and soon filled his heart. However, in the depths of Haoyin's heart, there was a trace of unwillingness that slowly grew, causing him to be unable to make up his mind to give up the position of the Celestial Emperor. Why couldn't he and the Jade Pool become the supreme beings of heaven and earth and rule the untainted land? The Tao ancestor had clearly agreed. Why did those great magicians still come out to stop him? Especially Zhuan Ti, why didn't they come out to help? Or even join forces with them to pressure him? One had to know that if he and the Jade Pool hadn't taken the risk to open the door of the Purple Cloud Palace, how could the two of them have today's achievements? Did they really not care about the friendship of the past at all? One question after another appeared in Haoyin's heart, causing the unwillingness in his heart to grow rapidly. Gradually, it was on par with the thought of giving up. You've gone too far. Haoyin, who was in a dilemma, glanced out of the corner of his eye and saw the Jade Pool, who was on the verge of collapse under the pressure of everyone. For a moment, his intuition was about to burst, and an indescribable anger surged in his heart. Endless years of companionship had long formed an indelible relationship between Haoyin and the Jade Pool. Could be said that the current Jade Pool was Haoyin's everything. Seeing the Jade Pool being forced to this point, how could Haoyin not be angry? He could be wronged, but the Jade Pool couldn't. The Jade Pool and I were born as Tao children, so you don't like us? It's ridiculous. In the untainted land, identity is very important. But in the end, strength is everything. Didn't you look down on the Jade Pool and me? Then today I will take the jade pool and become an existence above you. Driven by anger, the unwillingness in Hao Yan's heart burned crazily. It was as hot as the scorching sun, igniting the hot blood in his body. Hot blood flowed in his heart, stimulating his heroic spirit. At this moment, Hao Yan made up his mind. The heavenly emperor, no matter what, he was determined to be, not for himself but for the jade pool. The reputation of a Tao child was not so good after all, and he was looked down upon everywhere. Even the Tao child of the Tao ancestor was the same. Therefore, Hao Yan wanted to give the jade pool an incomparably noble identity. And in the untainted land, was there anything more noble than the identity of the heavenly empress? An incomparably powerful aura slowly rose from Hao Yan's body, forcing back all the pressure that surged from behind him, and at the same time protecting the jade pool. Teacher, Hao Yan is willing. Hao Yan is willing to be the heavenly emperor, rule the heavenly court, and sweep away the chaos of the untainted land. Under the pressure of everyone, Hao Yan straightened his back, looked straight into Tao ancestor Hongjuan's eyes, and said word by word. Boom! After Hao Yan said this, his aura also reached its peak. An aura that belonged to the great perfection of sage-to-be suddenly poured out, fiercely colliding with the pressure of everyone, stirring up a terrifying wind in the purple cloud palace. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Invisible waves of air spread, forming gusts of wind that rippled in the purple cloud palace, blowing everyone's hair and rolling up their clothes. Chapter 532. But at this moment no one cared about this. That was because they were all shocked by the strength that great heaven had displayed. The great perfection of the sage-to-be. Hao Yan, a little Taoist child, actually had the strength of the great perfection of the sage-to-be. It was really too shocking. One had to know that this kind of strength, even among the 3,000 guests of the Purple Cloud Palace, was also the top batch, stronger than most people. How could it be? Among the people present, those powerful figures whose cultivation level was lower than Hao Yan's could not help but feel ashamed at this moment. In vain, they thought that their status was noble and looked down on Hao Yan, who was born as a Taoist child. But in the end, their cultivation level was actually inferior to his. It was really embarrassing. At this moment, no one dared to come out and suppress Hao Yan. It was not because they were afraid of him, but because after Hao Yan nodded, if they attacked him, they would not give face to Tao ancestor Hongjun. If they offended Tao ancestor Hongjun because of this, how could they survive in the primordial world in the future? That's more like it. Seeing this, Feng Zichen nodded in satisfaction and gradually withdrew his pressure. He was not surprised that Hao Yan had such strength. One had to know that the one who accompanied the Tao ancestor the longest was not the three pure ones, but the Hao Yan jade pool. Even a pig could become a sage-to-be if it stayed by Tao ancestor Hongjuan's side all year round. Moreover, Hao Yan was not a pig. On the contrary, his talent was very good, and he could be ranked in the upper class among the 3,000 guests of the Purple Cloud mortal world. Hao Yan's background was also very big. He was formed from the Chaos Jade and could be called a top Khanate god fiend in the primordial world, only inferior to the three pure ones and the others. In the primordial world, those who could be related to chaos were not simple. If not, why would Tao ancestor Hongjun recommend Hao Yan to be the celestial emperor? He was not old and confused. How could he not know that without absolute strength, what was the difference between ascending to the position of celestial emperor and courting death? It was because he knew Hao Yan's strength and thought that he was qualified to lead the primordial world that Tao ancestor Hongjun recommended him. In the primordial world, although a background was important, strength was more important. Without strength, no matter how strong one's background was, it was useless. The great perfection of the sage-to-be. Hao Yan, you will have fun in the future. Looking at Hao Yan, Feng Zichen's eyes flickered. After knowing Hao Tian's true strength, it would be much easier to scheme against him in the future. Otherwise, just guessing Hao Yan's true strength would take up most of his energy. All right. Very good. Regarding vast heaven's choice, Dao ancestor Hongjun was very gratified. Everyone was threatening Hao Yin, so why didn't he do anything? He was waiting for Hao Tian to explode. He naturally knew Hao Tian's strength, but the others did not. Without showing extraordinary strength, how could everyone be convinced that he had ascended to the position of Celestial Emperor? Although, with Dao ancestor Hongjun's prestige, he could completely forcefully push Hao Yin onto the throne of Heavenly Emperor, and everyone also did not dare to object. However, in that case it would be disadvantageous for you Hao Yin to rule the primordial world in the future. Therefore, the Dao ancestor let everyone take action, forcing Hao Yin to have no choice but to reveal his strength. In this way, he would take the opportunity to settle this matter so that everyone would have nothing to say. Dao ancestor Hongjun was still very satisfied with Hao Yin. Regardless of background, talent, or comprehension, they were all top-notch. But unfortunately, his personality was flawed, and he liked to hide his strength too much. Originally, it was a good thing to hide his strength. After all, the primordial world was still too dangerous, and it was always good to keep a trump card. However, it might not be a good thing to hide his strength too much. Just like how one would really become a pig after pretending to be a pig for a long time. Therefore, based on the above considerations, Dao ancestor Hongjun did not want this disciple to be crippled just like that, so he decided to push him to the position of Celestial Emperor to temper his character. After becoming Celestial Emperor, he would not only have great power, but also unimaginable pressure. As long as he could withstand this pressure, Hao Yin would definitely undergo an unprecedented transformation. In the future, he might be able to cultivate to primordial chaos Daluo Jingxian. Hao Yin, I'll give you this Hao Yin mirror to help you monitor the heavens. Dao ancestor Hongjun waved his hand and gave the supreme grade Khanate spirit treasure, the Hao Yin mirror, to Hao Yin. This mirror had the ability to search the heavens and earth. It could reflect everything that happened in the primordial world. It was a top-notch auxiliary treasure in the primordial world. Thank you, teacher. Hao Yin took the Hao Yin mirror and thanked him. Dao ancestor Hongjun did not say anything and looked at Yao Qi. I'll give you this golden hairpin and this Khanate spirit root immortality peach tree. I hope you can help Hao Yin well. As he spoke, a golden hairpin and a peach tree flew out of his sleeve and landed in Yao Qi's hand. Thank you, teacher. After receiving air bow, Yao Qi was overjoyed and quickly stood up to thank him. It was no wonder that Yao Qi was so happy. Both the golden hairpin and the Khanate immortality peach tree were top-notch treasures in the primordial world. The former was a supreme-grade Khanate spirit treasure and had the ability to cut through space. The latter was one of the top 10 spirit roots in the primordial world. It was not much worse than a Khanate spirit treasure. You may leave. Dao ancestor Hongjun waved his hand to ask Hao Yin and Yao Qi to leave. Just as he was about to ask everyone to leave, a heavenly will suddenly appeared in front of everyone. Under the Celestial Emperor, there should be another 4 great emperors to rule the primordial world. As soon as this was said, the gods were in an uproar. Everyone was smart. How could they not see the true intention of the heavenly Dao's order? This was clearly to reduce the power of the Celestial Emperor. Regarding this, the Saint and Feng Zichen were naturally extremely happy. The rest of the people had the mentality that it had nothing to do with them. As for Dao ancestor Hongjun, his expression was indifferent. No one could tell what he was thinking. As the person involved, Hao Yin's face darkened. His expression was extremely ugly. Clearly, he was suppressing his anger. He had not officially ascended the throne yet, but his power had been reduced. No one would be happy if they faced such a thing. It was already considered good that Hao Yin could hold back and not curse out loud. Sigh! This is the will of the heavens. How can a person go against it? Dao ancestor Hongjun sighed and said slowly, Do you have any candidates in mind for the position of the 4 royals? The will of the heavens could not be violated. It spoke of Hongjun's helplessness. Even someone as powerful as him could not violate the orders of the heavenly Dao. May I ask, Master, what are the positions of the 4 great emperors? After thinking for a while, the Grand Pure One asked. They wanted to recommend him, but they did not even know what the 4 royals were going to do. How could they recommend him? The Lord of Myriad Stars, Great Emperor Ziwei, the Lord of Myriad Gods, Great Emperor Gochen, the Lord of Myriad Thunder, Great Emperor Changsheng, and the Lord of Myriad Lands, Empress Hutu. Tao ancestor Hong Jun calculated for a moment and said to everyone, "Hiss." Hearing this, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. The heavenly Tao was really ruthless. It had reduced more than half of the Celestial Emperor's power. In the future, if the four royals joined forces, they would probably be able to directly take over the Celestial Emperor. Heavenly Emperor Haoyan was really a coward. He had not even taken office, but more than half of his power had been reduced. For a moment, everyone looked at Hao Tian with eyes filled with schadenfreude. Previously, they thought that he was lucky enough to become the Celestial Emperor in one step. But now it seemed that it was not the case. Haoyan's face was obviously darker. The aura on his body was fluctuating. It was obvious that he was trying his best to endure. If Yao Qi had not been holding him back, who knew what he would have done? Buzz, buzz, buzz. Suddenly, the void rippled, and the will of heaven appeared again. Two talismans condensed out of thin air and floated in the middle of the purple cloud palace. This is... Everyone was shocked. They did not know what the heavenly Tao was going to do and why it had to appear twice in a row. Tao ancestor Hong Jun reached out and took one of the two talismans. He opened it in front of everyone. On it was written, "The Lady of Earth is, the heavenly Tao is great and virtuous, and the Lady of Earth is the Earth Emperor, limitless and boundless, respected by heaven and earth." In this way, one of the four royals, the Lady of Earth, was decided. It was the Lady of Earth. In fact, the Lady of Earth was not worthy of the Lady of Earth. Although this deity position was noble and was one of the four royals of the primordial world, it could be said to be the highest karmic position in the world. However, what kind of identity was the Lady of Earth? She was the first saint of the Tao. She was even more noble than the 6 saints of the heavenly Tao and was second only to Tao ancestor Hong Jun. A mere 4 royals was naturally not worthy of her. It would be better if it was the Celestial Emperor. However, the heavenly Tao had no choice. The Lady of Earth was obviously prepared for the Lady of Earth. One had to know that the Lady of Earth had the title of Mother of Earth. She was the well-deserved ruler of the land. If the ruler of all lands, the Empress of Earth, were to be given to someone else, where would Empress Earth belong? How could there be 2 emperors on Earth? Wasn't this forcing the Lady of Earth to kill? Therefore, no matter what, the deity position of the Lady of Earth had to be given to the Lady of Earth. Go! After knowing the thoughts of the heavenly Tao, Tao ancestor Hong Jun directly sent the talisman to the netherworld. He could not be the master of the Lady of Earth. The choice was up to the Lady of Earth herself. In the netherworld, the Lady of Earth looked at the talisman in front of her. After hesitating for a moment, she chose to accept the talisman. However, the position of Empress Earth Emperor would not be taken by him, but by Ping Xian. A mysterious yellow light rose from the Lady of Earth's body and gradually turned into a woman who looked very similar to the Lady of Earth. It was her merit incarnation, Ping Xian. Back then, the heavenly Tao wanted to use the merit chi to reconstruct the Lady of Earth's physical body. But who knew that the Pangu bloodline in the Lady of Earth's body was too domineering and directly removed the merit chi from her body? Since she could not absorb it, the Lady of Earth refined it into an incarnation based on the principle of not wasting it, which was the current Ping Xian. After Ping Xian appeared, she did not stand on ceremony and directly stepped forward to take the heavenly Tao talisman. Then, with a boom, the heavenly Tao talisman scattered and turned into billions of light spots, covering Ping Xian's body. Swish, a divine light flashed, and a luxurious imperial robe appeared on Ping Xian's body. The Lady of Earth. The birth of the Lady of Earth. Heaven and earth immediately reacted. Golden flowers fell from the sky, and golden lotuses gushed out from the ground. The mysterious sound of the great Tao resounded among the heavenly emperors. Praise the Lady of Earth. Praise the sky-bearing empire's great virtue and the Earth Empress. 9 Splendor Jade Palace, 7 Treasures Imperial Room. The Lady of Earth is in charge of yin and yang. The Tao promotes honor and contains great light, and the virtue is stored in gentleness and purity. Imitate Hao Yin, and nurture the beauty of Kuan Yuan. Flow of things, and form the benevolence of a mother. Yu is dependent, and the mountains and rivers form a shield. Great sorrow and great wish, great saint and great benevolence. Heaven-bearing technique, Earth Empress. Between heaven and earth, there were sounds of chanting. It was like the whispers of the gods, but also like the whispers of all living beings, congratulating the birth of a great and honorable existence. Praise the Lady of Earth. Praise the sky-bearing empire's great virtue and the Earth Empress. In a trance, a great figure seemed to appear in front of all living beings, making them subconsciously worship and offer their blessings. Purple Cloud Palace. Everyone was full of praises. The commotion caused by the birth of the four royals was comparable to when a sage achieved Tao. It was obvious that the heavenly Tao valued them. What a great opportunity! Seeing this, even those who did not value the four royals before could not help but reevaluate them. The heavenly Tao had personally come to create momentum for them. Who would dare to underestimate the four royals? Swish, retracting their gazes from below, everyone looked at Feng Zichen in unison. Obviously, the other heavenly Tao talisman was prepared for him. Because other than the Star Master of Ziwei, who else was qualified to become the great emperor of Ziwei? If it was not for him, then a great battle was inevitable. The Star Master of Ziwei would never allow outsiders to taint Ziwei's star. Sure enough, Tao Ancestor Hongjun opened the heavenly Tao talisman. On it was written Feng Zichen. The Star Master of Ziwei is Middle Heaven Great Emperor of North Pole Ziwei, controls all things and commands all stars. Infinite and infinite, respected by heaven and earth. Without the slightest hesitation, Feng Zichen stepped forward. Boom! The heavenly Tao talisman shattered with a loud bang. Tao light flashed all over the sky, turning into a purple imperial robe that draped over Feng Zichen's body. Middle Heaven Great Emperor of North Pole Ziwei. Heaven and earth shook again, and the phenomenon that had just dissipated reappeared. Heavenly flowers, golden lotuses, and Tao voices appeared one by one. Praise the Great Emperor of North Pole Ziwei. Middle Heaven Great Emperor of North Pole Ziwei. Daluo Celestial Palace, Ziwei Star Palace. He lives high in the North Pole, above the Middle Heaven. His Dharma name is Golden Will Blazing, and his Tao name is Jade Dipper Xianzun. Jade Dipper, Qi Qijing, and Qi Qijing, the heavenly geography, the sun, moon, and star mansions, the ecliptic purple boundary, the master of all things. Ruler of all heavens, great sorrow and great wish, great sage and great mercy, myriad star sect master, limitless origin emperor, Zhongtian Ziwei, great emperor of North Pole. Between heaven and earth, the mysterious Tao seal once again resounded, celebrating the birth of great Emperor Ziwei. At the same time, Feng Zichen's Ziwei Emperor shadow also appeared in the minds of all living beings, accepting the worship of all living beings. Congratulations, fellow Taoist Ziwei. In the Purple Cloud Palace, after the phenomenon ended, everyone congratulated Feng Zichen one after another. Listening to the Star Master's message, his power was simply shocking. It was not an exaggeration to say that he was a little celestial emperor. Of course, they had to befriend such a person. However, the way Hao Yin looked at Feng Zichen seemed a little strange. Thinking about it, the power of great Emperor Ziwei should have belonged to the celestial emperor. Seeing the person who had taken away his power talking and laughing in front of him, how could he be happy? In this regard, Feng Zichen did not care. The four imperials and the celestial emperor had an irreconcilable conflict. There are still two imperial thrones left. The Western Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity and the Southern Pole Longevity Emperor. Do you have anyone in mind? At this time, Tao Ancestor Hongjun spoke. He wanted to take advantage of this gathering to decide on all the imperial thrones at once. You're tuning in to the Legend of the Vagabond YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.